Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHD, and welcome to the final European race of 2025 and to what is going to be a very exciting race day at Monza, the Temple of Speed, for the Italian Grand Prix of 2025, the 16th race of the season. And as I said, this is going to be a pretty exciting day. Qualifying yesterday was absolutely brilliant and has set us up very nicely for a very competitive, close, and possibly very, very exciting Italian Grand Prix. Possibly like what we got last year, and hopefully we do get something similar, if not better. It's, again, set up to be very good today, and the weather is absolutely beautiful at Monza, as it has been all weekend. And yeah, it should be a fun day today. Thankfully, I can sit here and talk about other teams that could possibly win the race today other than McLaren, because really in the last few races it's been the McLaren show. But we have not just one other team that could win today, we have two other teams, the McLaren, that can win today, Red Bull and Ferrari. And it's a race that's going to be decided on really, fine moments. The start, obviously, being a crucial moment. The race strategy, the pit stops, any key overtakes. That's what's going to decide this race today in terms of who wins and who finishes on the podium. And of course, it all is very important for the Drivers' Championship. Oscar Piastri, 34 points clear of Lando Norris coming into this race. Norris is ahead on the grid, but only by one position. And we remember last year where Piastri should have won, but it was took away from him because McLaren got it wrong strategically. So we will see if Piastri can avenge what happened last year. Can Charles Leclerc repeat the drive from last year where he won from fourth on the grid? Or will Max Verstappen win the Italian Grand Prix at Monza for the third time in the last 4 years? We will find out in a few hours from now. Great to see you all here. Hope you're all doing well after qualifying, and hope no matter what part of the world you're in, what time zone you're in, hope everything is going as well as possible given whatever circumstances you may be going through. And I hope you can join me today in watching along and enjoying the Italian Grand Prix. My co-commentator Niblo will be joining me, by the way, later. He'll be hopping on in about an hour and a half to join me for this race watch along. I know he's pretty excited for this race. Of course, we've not done a race watch along since the Belgian Grand Prix, which was about 6 weeks ago. And very excited for today. Very excited. I've been excited about this Grand Prix for a few weeks because I knew it was going to be a real close competitive weekend, but it's really lived up, thankfully, to my own personal hype that I've given this weekend. And yeah, really cannot wait for it today. What do you call it? Again, hope you guys can watch along and enjoy with the race with us today. If you can't, though, watch the race, but you want to keep up to date with what is going on, this is the best place to be, because we will keep you absolutely bang up to date with everything going on in the Italian Grand Prix of 2025. And before we get into what the build-up is going to be, and if you've never joined us for a race watch along before, the build-up, we're going to go through, obviously, what happened in qualifying yesterday, looking at the results. Then we'll get into the data from qualifying, looking at the sector time data, just to understand why the grid has ended up the way it has, and why certain teams are quick, why certain teams are not. We'll also get into the speed trap data. Obviously, here at Monza, that's very important to see what teams down the straights are very quick and what teams are lagging a bit in straight line speed. And also we'll get into the long run data from practice 2 earlier this weekend, just to see who over the long runs is looking strong and not so strong And then, of course, I'll get into my own personal race prediction. We'll also do a roundup of the teams before we get into the race, and I'll make sure to go through the strategy options for the race today in terms of what the best strategy for the race is, in terms of what Pirelli have said. And then I'll go through what I think the strategy options are for certain teams and drivers. And then, in an hour and 54 minutes, we'll get into the race itself. And hopefully, again, it's a great one. There is a poll running at the top of the live chat where I've asked you guys who will win the Italian Grand Prix today. Make sure to vote in that poll if you want to let me know who you think is going to win the race today. That poll will keep running until about 5 minutes or so before the race begins, and then I will finish up the poll and we'll see the results and see who you guys have gone for as the most likely race winner. And the options in the poll are the top 4 on the grid: Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, and Charles Leclerc. Out of those 4 drivers, who do you think takes the race win today at Monza? Thankfully, from Verstappen and Leclerc's point of view, they've both won this race twice. Piastri and Norris have never won here at Monza. So that does play in Max and Charles' favour. But yeah, let me know in that poll, who do you think wins the race? And then we'll see what the results are right before we get into the race itself. But I think what we'll do is just get straight into it. And we'll start with the results of qualifying and Max Verstappen. I said coming into qualifying that he was absolutely a contender for pole position. Not everyone necessarily believed that Max was definitely going to be fighting for pole, but when it came down to it, he showed that ultimately he had the pace, and ultimately he had the pace not only to fight for pole, but to actually get pole position. And with that pole position, he sets a new lap record at Monza, a 1:18.792, and that lap is also the fastest lap in the history of Formula One. And what that means is that his lap has the highest average speed of any lap done ever. So congratulations to Max Verstappen for that record, and that's a record that he is going to hold on to for, I think, quite a long time. So, yeah, Max, fully deserving of the pole. He was absolutely brilliant in qualifying. Lando Norris, second on the grid. Not necessarily doing the best he could have done in qualifying. Pole position was definitely doable. But in the end, Max was just that little bit better. So I wouldn't say it was a bad qualifying for Lando. I think it was decent. But definitely, it would have been a big result had he got onto pole and put a car in between himself and his teammate and championship rival. Oscar Piastri then in third place. Piastri, I don't think will be that disappointed really that he's third on the grid, because his teammate and championship rival is only just ahead of him. And he knows that he is normally better on a race day than Lando is. So as long as he outperforms Lando and finishes ahead of him, that's all that matters. If Oscar doesn't win the race today, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, as long as he beats Norris today, that's all that matters. And it's got to that point for Piastri where he doesn't necessarily need to win all of the remaining races to make sure he wins the championship. He could afford to not win 2 or 3 races here or there, but still beat Norris by, a position and outscore him by, say, 3 points. And that can still be easily enough to push him to obviously eventually win the World Championship. So a lot more pressure today on Lando Norris than Oscar Piastri. As long as Piastri finishes on the podium, I don't think he'll be too bothered, really, about whatever happens in this race. Of course, if he can beat Norris, that's great. If he can beat Norris and win the race, that's absolutely brilliant, especially if Norris doesn't finish in second. But, yeah, the pressure definitely on Lando Norris. And not necessarily that pressure is deserved, because obviously Lando having his DNF at the last Grand Prix has really hurt his championship chances. So Lando now has to just simply beat Oscar in every single Grand Prix to have a chance of winning the championship. Even if Lando did not have that DNF, Lando would still need today really to win the race. So the pressure definitely more so on Lando. Charles Leclerc fourth. Disappointing day for Ferrari. Fourth and fifth in qualifying. Lewis Hamilton obviously has that 5-place grid penalty. So Lewis will be starting from P10 in the race today, which destroys really any chance of him finishing on the podium. And the best I can see for Lewis is that he finishes in 5th place. And that's only if Ferrari have a really fast car today. That's not a guarantee that he's going to be up there fighting Russell, let's say, for that position. So yeah, Lewis had his weekend really destroyed before he even came to Monza. But for Leclerc, again, disappointing. Both Ferraris did not improve on that final lap, and that's ultimately what cost Ferrari having a better grid position. One thing, though, I want to just quickly get into with Ferrari is, given that Lewis had a 5-place grid penalty, why did they not, have Lewis give Leclerc the tow in Q3? Why did they not try and do that? Lewis has the 5-place penalty. He's not really, unfortunately, a factor this weekend because of it. Why did they not try that? If I was the team boss of Ferrari, what I would have done is have Leclerc give Hamilton the slipstream in the first run of Q3, and then Hamilton give the slipstream in the second run so that Lewis, can't say that it's unfair that he's having to give the slipstream all the time. I don't know why they didn't try it. Maybe they thought that they had enough anyway to at least get on the front row, never mind get on, pole position, to not need to do that. But, yeah, I don't understand why they didn't at least try it, because it was so close in qualifying. That extra tenth or two you could get from, having a tow from a car ahead would be very useful. But Ferrari, for some reason, felt that they didn't need to do that. Fred Vasseur, the team boss of Ferrari, came out after and said that I think he said something like there was no need to do that. But then Leclerc, after qualifying, said that it was Fred after qualifying said that that Leclerc rejected it or something like that, or that he didn't want to he didn't want Lewis to give him the tow in qualifying. But then Leclerc came out after qualifying and said that it was never even really discussed. So, and Leclerc, by the sounds of it, was up for trying that to give them that extra tenth or two. So, strategically, I think Ferrari have got it wrong there, and I think it will cost them being able to win this Grand Prix, because I know they won from 4th on the grid last year, but that was because the reason they won the race was because they did a stop less than McLaren did. Spoiler alert, Pirelli have said that today is going to be a one-stop race. So Ferrari will not be able to do that again. And because they're 4th on the grid, it's not impossible that, that they can't win from there. Of course they can. There's been drivers that have won from 5th or 6th on the grid here, or even lower. Pierre Gasly won from 10th on the grid here 5 years ago. But I think if Leclerc, say that Leclerc was on pole, even if Leclerc was 2nd on the grid, I think he would have a very good chance of winning today. But with him in 4th, and given how quick the McLarens are in terms of their race pace, it's going to take something quite special for Ferrari to win this race today. Either the performance of Leclerc's career, the best performance of his career, or Ferrari having incredible race pace out of nowhere, or having an amazing strategy that somehow works. Something quite amazing is going to have to happen today for Ferrari to win this race. Again, if they were on the front row, I think the chances would be very good of winning. But I think 4th on the grid is just, again, a bit too far away. So I think Ferrari are looking more at a podium finish than a race win. Not impossible, as I said, that they can win the race today. Of course they can, but like I said, it's going to take something amazing from Ferrari to get that job done. Then, Lewis Hamilton has that grid penalty, so it'll be a Mercedes 3rd row lockout. I haven't said that in a while. Russell 5th, Antonelli 6th. Antonelli, I thought, did a very good job. Probably the best job he's done since his podium weekend in Canada. And it honestly, in terms of qualifying, if you compare how he did compared to Russell, probably the best, maybe not the best, but one of the best qualifying days he's had all season. So great to see from Antonelli, and hopefully if he does finish the race well today, say in the top 6 where he should finish, that will give him quite a bit of confidence to finish the season well, because the car is definitely good enough to be consistently, finishing 5th, 6th, 7th, places like that. So Antonelli hopefully has a good race today. And then it will be Gabriel Bortoleto, 7th on the grid. What a season he is having. And given how quick Sauber normally are in a race situation, I'd be pretty surprised if they don't score points today. And then it'll be Alonso 8th. I don't know how Alonso is 8th on the grid. It just shows you how great of a driver Alonso is, because that Aston Martin car never really looked like top 10 material until qualifying, and that's because of Fernando Alonso. And then completing the top 10, Yuki Tsunoda. Tsunoda will start 9th, just ahead of Lewis Hamilton. And yes, Tsunoda, disappointing qualifying for him. He should have been ahead of Bortoleto, really. And if he was, then, would be 7th on the grid. And 7th on the grid for Tsunoda would be a pretty good grid position to score a good amount of points that he desperately does need. That's not to say, though, that he can't finish in 7th today. But, yeah, I think he, once again, let himself down a bit in qualifying. Let's now go on to the rest of the order. Oliver Behrman 11th. Behrman doing the best he could. Haas were not top 10 material in qualifying. Behrman, though, I think has got a decent chance of finishing in the points, especially if there is a DNF from someone in the top 10. So, yeah, keep your eye on Behrman. He's driving well as of late. Hulkenberg 12th. Hulkenberg, probably the best qualifying he's had in quite a few races. So keep your eye on Hulkenberg. Sauber also should be pretty quick in this race. And then 13th and 14th on the 7th row of the grid, the two Williamses, Sainz and Albon. I am baffled as to how slow they were in qualifying. And quite simply, if you look at the lap times they were doing in practice 2 on Friday, and look at what they did yesterday, they only gained about what was it? They only gained about 3 to 4 tenths of a second lap time from practice 2 into qualifying. When if you look at other midfield teams, a lot of them gained, say, a second on what they did in practice 2. So Williams either were doing glory runs in practice 2 or for some reason just could not carry over that speed and improve on it like everyone else did, in qualifying. Because I really thought they would be right in the mix for, say, a third row grid position. And if they were as quick yesterday as I thought they would be, they could have even maybe got on the second row of the grid. Because I thought going into qualifying that they were quicker than Mercedes. But they, again, in Q1, I remember they were pretty quick. But after that, yeah, just no pace. So I don't know, maybe a tyre issue or something like that. But yeah, baffled, honestly, as to why they're 13th and 14th. They should theoretically improve on that. But if we don't get a DNF in this race, which I think there's been a few Italian Grand Prix as of late where we've not had a DNF, I think Williams are going to struggle to finish in the points, which is an issue for them because you've got Sauber and Aston Martin both in the top 10. And if they score a few points, that will also obviously close the gap to Williams in the championship. This was a weekend, even though they scored 10 points at Zandvoort, this was a weekend where they really needed to have a strong points finish and deliver on the pace they showed on Friday to really consolidate, at least for now, their 5th place in the championship. But if they don't score points today, it might be quite a few races until you see them in a position where they strongly score points. Not saying they won't score points again for the rest of the season, but this weekend was a really big chance for them. And unless they have amazing race pace, I don't see them really scoring a point today, unfortunately. And then you got Esteban Ocon in 15th. Ocon, I think, probably will be disappointed not only to be 15th, but to be as far off his teammate as he was, quarter of a second away. I think Ocon probably should have been at least splitting the two Williamses. So yeah, it's a bit disappointing there for Ocon. And then Isaac Hadjar in 16th, Racing Bulls as well, baffling as to why they were so slow in qualifying. And there are there is a bit of data, interesting bits of data to get into that kind of explains why. And then Lance Stroll 17th, once again, absolutely hopeless from the Canadian. Franco Colapinto 18th. I think he's out-qualified Gasly a couple times in these last 3 or 4 races, so good to see from Colapinto. Definitely doing a good job as of late, but unfortunately the Alpine car is just nowhere near quick enough this weekend to be in the points. And then at the back, Liam Lawson. Lawson, I don't know what issue he had, but he did not come out for the final run in Q1, and that cost him the chance of being able to get into Q2. Lawson probably could have got through to Q2, but I don't think he would have got into Q3 at all. I think he would have been quite a bit away from that. But yeah, Racing Bulls 16th and 20th on the grid, when this time last week they were 4th and 8th on the grid. What a difference a week makes. But those are the results of qualifying. Get into the sector time data to understand why it ended up the way it did. Sauber, incredible pace in the first sector, and as you'll see with the speed trap data soon, they have got it absolutely bang on with their wing setup. They have the best top speed of any team this weekend, and the first sector exemplifies that. So congrats to Sauber to getting the setup absolutely bang on. And then Ferrari also very quick to this part of the lap. No surprise there. Ferrari have been very quick in the first sector all weekend. And then Red Bull also pretty quick. Racing Bulls, 4th best team in the first sector. And as you'll see in a moment, with the speed trap data. Their top speed was actually good, but the rest of the lap, it just fell apart for them. Aston Martin as well, pretty good. Haas, decent for them, given that we know they've had a bit of issues with their top speed. McLaren, 0.2 of a second slower than Sauber in the first sector alone, and about a 10th slower than Red Bull. I would say that's where McLaren lost pole position, but I'm not necessarily sure that is the case. McLaren have not been that quick in the first sector all weekend. It's the rest of the lap where they're a lot better. Red Bull, though, improved quite a bit on the first sector pace that they were showing earlier in the weekend. So I think it's more of a case that Red Bull improved than McLaren, did poorly or anything. Williams, not good at all from them. They were second quickest in the first sector in practice, but in qualifying, only 8th. I don't know if they got the setup badly wrong or what, but that is horrible. And also, Mercedes, 9th best team, and compared to Red Bull, nearly 0.2 of a second, or pretty much 0.2 of a second slower than Red Bull. And clearly, either the Mercedes is not as efficient in a straight line as it was earlier this season, or they simply put too much wing on the car, because that cost them dearly. If they were at the same pace as Ferrari and Red Bull in this first sector, then George Russell, if we go back to the qualifying results, you can see if Russell had an extra 0.2 of a second, Russell would have been third on the grid. So that's what has cost Mercedes in the end. It's that first sector. If it wasn't for that, they would be right in the fight for maybe not the win, but definitely the podium. But they've cost themselves that chance, unfortunately, because their top speed just clearly isn't good enough. And then the slowest team, Alpine. Not a surprise, they've been the slowest team all weekend. The middle sector is the most aero-heavy part of the track, let's say. No surprise that McLaren are the quickest team. Mercedes second quickest, only a 10th slower than McLaren. So Mercedes and the rest of the lap, their pace is absolutely fine. But yeah, that first sector just destroying Mercedes' chances. Red Bull then third. And then Ferrari in fourth. And I said in my qualifying build-up when I was looking at the middle sector data from practice 2, where Ferrari were a couple tenths of a second off in that data, I did say that Ferrari have got to be at least a 10th of a second closer in the middle sector if they're going to get a good grid position to set them up for a possible win. And they didn't do that. In fact, they got worse in the middle sector. A quarter of a second away is just simply not good enough. They needed to be about on the same pace as Red Bull, or maybe slightly quicker than that, really. And if they were, then Leclerc would have been third, if not maybe second on the grid. So ultimately, it's the middle sector which has cost Leclerc and Ferrari in qualifying. Just too slow, and pretty much lapping at the same pace as Aston Martin, which you just simply cannot accept, I'm afraid. Williams, a much better middle sector pace, but still not as good as what they were doing in practice. In practice, they were the second best team in the middle sector. So still quite a drop-off. And then Sauber, Haas, and then quite a drop-off to Alpine and Racing Bulls. For some reason, 0.6 of a second off the pace in just the middle sector. And I think Racing Bulls' issues this weekend are setup related. I think they've got the setup massively wrong. Either that or the setup, the low downforce setup they've gone for just simply doesn't work with the aero design, the fundamental design and way the car works. But yeah, it's definitely setup related. And the final sector, Max Verstappen just about quicker than Lando Norris, and McLaren in practice were actually very quick in this final sector. And I would say this is probably where McLaren lost pole position. If they could have been, just a tenth of a second quicker, which I know doesn't sound a lot, but it is a lot in Formula One terms, especially when you're fighting for pole and it's so close, then that would have made a difference. But again, they just didn't show quite the same pace in that final sector as they had done before, and Max had the pace. Mercedes, again, really good pace. If it just wasn't for that first sector, Mercedes would be right in there. But yeah, clearly I've got it wrong with their setup, their wing level, because it's just nowhere near good enough in the first sector. Ferrari also quite disappointing in the final sector. They should not be nearly a tenth and a half off, and this just added to the misery really for Ferrari. And then Sauber, the quickest midfield team in the final part of the lap, just ahead of Haas, Aston Martin. Williams, again, big drop-off. They were third quickest in the final sector in practice, and then eighth quickest in qualifying. That is just simply not good enough from Williams as far as I'm concerned. And then Alpine, surprisingly quicker than Racing Bulls in the final sector. Again, Racing Bulls setup-related issues for them. But overall, who had the fastest car in qualifying? I would say probably McLaren, given how close it was between McLaren and Red Bull. I think Max is the one ultimately who made the difference. So I would say McLaren just about had the faster car in qualifying. And then second quickest, I would probably say Red Bull, only slightly ahead of Ferrari. Very close between the top three teams it was in qualifying. Probably 0.2 of a second at most, I think, separating those three teams. And then fourth quickest, obviously Mercedes. Fifth, Sauber. Sixth, Aston Martin. And then seventh, I would say Haas ahead of Williams. You'd have to say in eighth. And then Racing Bulls ninth and Alpine in 10th. But McLaren, the car is good, but it's not miles ahead of the rest like it has been in the last few races. And that's, of course, what's made it so interesting this weekend. But let's get into the speed trap data. This is very important data for the race to see who has a good speed trap. And also, it shows why maybe certain teams have not been on the pace this weekend. And this speed trap data, by the way, is took from the speed trap located at the end of the pit straight. And yes, Sauber were actually in the whole top 20. They were first and second in the speed trap. So yeah, Sauber, the quickest team down the straight. So if they are behind another car within a second of another car, watch out for Sauber. They are going to be like a bullet down the straights. Ferrari, very quick. No surprise there. And then, third quickest team in the speed trap, Racing Bulls. Yet they are one of the slowest teams. So again, it just must not mesh well with the rest of the car, because around this track, if you have that little level of downforce on, you should theoretically be at least in the middle of the pack, but they're nowhere near that. So yeah, something fundamentally has gone wrong with that Racing Bulls. Aston Martin, good top speed there. Haas, good for them, given that they're normally towards the bottom. Williams' top speed is fine. I don't think that's what's caused whatever issues they had in qualifying. Red Bull's top speed, actually, I mean, it's okay, but it wasn't actually that great compared to the rest, which I think just shows how great of a lap that was from Max Verstappen. He was, 3-4 kilometers an hour slower down the straights than the Ferraris, yet he was, a quarter of a second quicker. that is just how great Max Verstappen is. Mercedes, this is what's surprising. Mercedes 0.2 of a second slower than Red Bull in the first sector, yet their top speed is about the same as Red Bull. So maybe that first chicane is just an absolute horror show for them. I don't know, but that is baffling to me. And then McLaren, about 2-3 kilometer an hour drop off compared to Red Bull and Mercedes, and only slightly quicker down the straights than Alpine. But you can see, compared to Ferrari, a 7 kilometer an hour difference. That is absolutely massive. As Martin Brundle has famously said many times, if something ran you over at 7 kilometers an hour, you would certainly know about it. And that is a gigantic difference. But what it shows, given that McLaren are ahead of Ferrari on the grid, what it shows is just how much better that McLaren car is through the corners compared to the Ferrari car. That Ferrari can be that much quicker down the straights, yet McLaren are still quicker than them. So, when we go to Singapore in a few weeks' time, Ferrari are going to be absolutely miles off the pace. Miles off the pace. Same for Red Bull. Maybe not the same for Mercedes. I actually think they'll be quite decent there. But yeah, it really just exemplifies the difference between the McLaren and the Ferrari car. That Ferrari can be that much quicker in a straight line, yet still be slower than McLaren. Quite incredible. But yeah, these are the speed traps. So watch out for Sauber, the Ferrari-powered teams, Racing Bulls, Aston Martin. But one thing with McLaren, if McLaren at any point have a car behind them within a second of them, and it's, say, a Ferrari or a Red Bull, or even a Mercedes, watch out, because McLaren will be a sitting duck down that pit straight, especially if a Ferrari is within a second of them. Of course, who is right behind the two McLarens? It is the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. So that is something to keep your eyes on in terms of an advantage that Leclerc has for the race. But if McLaren can get within a second of Max and get into a bit of a DRS train, then that would hold back Leclerc from being able to utilize that massive speed difference. So keep your eyes on Leclerc if he can get DRS on the McLarens, especially if the McLarens do not have DRS. But before I get into my own race predictions, let's just quickly touch on the long run data from Friday practice. Now, most drivers did their long runs on the medium compound tyre, which is the tyre that almost everyone is going to start on today. It's going to be a one-stop race. Always, well, not always, but 90% of the time it tends to be a one-stop race here at Monza. McLaren had the best long run pace by about a quarter of a second. No surprise about that. Red Bull's long run pace, though, pretty good. Williams's was very good, but then again, they were a lot quicker on Friday, so I'm not sure whether they'll carry that over. Mercedes' pace was decent. Sauber's was good. Ferrari's pace was okay. Mercedes and Ferrari, though, did their long runs on the hard compound tyre, which I'm not necessarily sure is the quicker tyre. So if they were on the medium, Mercedes may have been splitting McLaren and Red Bull, and Ferrari would be right in there as well. So Red Bull, Mercedes and Ferrari could be on the same pace for the race today. We'll see. And then a slight drop off then to Racing Bulls, Haas and Alpine, and then Aston Martin. Quite the drop off to them. Now, on Friday, Aston Martin were a bit worse pace-wise than they turned out to be on Saturday, so maybe they will be a bit stronger today. But yeah, that's something to keep our eyes on, and we'll see whether this long-run pace from Friday translates into the race itself. But let me now get into my final race prediction, as we've got an hour and 20 minutes to go until lights out at Monza. And here it is, with my predicted gaps as well. Max Verstappen, I think, just about will hang on for victory ahead of Oscar Piastri in second. And Charles Leclerc, I think, will finish in third. Lando Norris, I think, will finish fourth. With Russell fifth, Antonelli sixth. Hamilton, I think, comes home seventh in a very lonely seventh. Eighth will be Bortoletto, just ahead of Tsunoda and Alonso. So that's my top 10 and who I think is going to win and be on the podium. Let me know in the live chat, guys. Who do you think wins the race? Who do you think gets on the podium? What's your top 5? Let me know before the race begins. And of course, there's a poll running in the chat. Let me know in that poll, who is going to win the race today? Will it be Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, or Leclerc? Let me know before lights out, and I'll make sure to go through the results of that poll right before the beginning of the race. But let me just go back here, as I'll get the timer back on screen in a few seconds' time. Just wanted to say quickly, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, as we do qualifying and race watch-alongs for pretty much every Grand Prix. Bottom right of the screen, you can subscribe right there. And also, make sure to smash the like button. Obviously, hitting the like button does help the channel and the algorithm, and also helps show me that you guys enjoy the content. We're currently on 20 likes. Let's try and get up to 40 plus likes if we can in the next half an hour. That'd be great if we could do that. But let me just quickly, before we get into race strategy, let me just quickly have a drink of water. As currently on Sky F1, Ted Gravitz is stood on the Monza podium, which is good access to see that they've got these days. Sky F1, but yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to be as hot today as it was yesterday. Bit more haze or a bit more cloud around. That'll help the tyres, but even if it's the hottest day of the year, I think it's going to be still a one-stop race. The tyres normally hang on pretty well here, even though the tyres they've brought are the softest in the Pirelli range. Anyway, let's get into race strategy. And I'll just get up what Pirelli have said. So, according to Pirelli, the quickest strategy today is a one-stop strategy, and there are 4 options for a one-stop strategy here at Monza. The quickest one is to start on the medium, pit between lap 22 and 28, and then go on to a set of hard tyres to finish the race. Most drivers are going to do that strategy. Or you could start on the hard tyre, pit between lap 28 and 34, and then go on to a set of mediums to finish the race. And then there's 2 other options. You could start on the medium, go a bit longer on your tyres, pit between lap 32 and 38 and finish the race on the soft tyres, or do the same strategy as that one I just mentioned, but instead start on the hard tyres and again pit between lap 32 and 38 and then finish on the soft compound tyres. So yeah, it's going to be a one-stop race. In terms of how you play it, it's up to obviously the teams. There will be certain teams running the hard tyre to start with, and I think there will be maybe a couple of the front-running teams that will try to start on the hard compound tyre, or at least run longer into the race than others. We'll get into that in a moment, though. One thing I want to get into, though, is who has new tyres in the top 10. So both McLarens have one new set of mediums and hards. The same goes for Ferrari. Max Verstappen, though, has 2 new sets of hard tyres and 1 new set of mediums. So if a safety car comes, that might, that lasts, say, 10, 15 laps, and Max has the ability to pit and not really lose too much, then that could really help Max Verstappen. George Russell has, 1 new set of the medium and the hard, same for Antonelli. And also Bortoletto has a new set of medium and hard tyres. Alonso does not have any new tyres. He does have 1 used set of hards and another used set of medium tyres. But yeah, no new tyres for either. Or no, Aston Martin. The Aston Martin of Stroll has 2 new sets of soft tyres, but no new hard or medium tyres for Aston Martin. And then for Tsunoda also has 1 new set of hards and 1 new set of mediums. But yeah, that extra set of hard tyres for Max might be handy if we get a safety car in the last 10 to 15 laps. So we'll keep our eye on that. But safety cars here are not really super likely. If you're going to have a safety car here, it tends to happen at the start of the race because of how big these cars are and how narrow the entry and how narrow in general the chicanes are, the first and second chicane. So if we get a safety car, like I said, it's probably going to be in the first 2-3 laps. So it probably won't affect the strategy at all. Also, the 3 tyre compounds we have this weekend are the C5, the C4 and the C3. The C5 being the softest tyre. According to Pirelli, the delta between the compounds in terms of grip at the start, there is a 2-meter advantage in terms of grip off the start line with the soft tyre compared to the medium. And then there's not that much of a difference, or a gigantic difference, let's say, between the medium and the hard. So maybe that data right there, that might encourage maybe a Leclerc or even one of the Mercedes to start the soft tyre to, get maybe a position or 2 on lap 1. So that is what Pirelli have said in terms of strategy options and who has what tyres. Will saying Isaac Hadjar starting from the pit lane. Right. So, well, that's messed up my grid graphic, but I'll make sure to mention that. Cheers for saying that. Let me just quickly check what reason is. I'm assuming it's just to put a new setup on. And actually, Hadjar and Gasly starting from the pit lane. So it will be Stroll 16th, Colapinto 17th, Lawson 18th, and then it should be Hadjar 19th and Gasly 20th in the pit lane. So 2 cars in the pit lane and 18 cars on the grid. So, before I get into your comments, I just want to quickly touch on race strategy in terms of the options that the front-running teams have. So, Max Verstappen, I don't think will start on the soft compound tyre because Red Bull have the worst tyre wear of the front 4 teams. And even if that gives Max a great start, it's really going to hurt him when we get to lap 15, lap 20, and it's going to force him to pit earlier, and then that's going to work against him later on. So he's not going to start on the soft compound tyre. I think what Max and Red Bull are going to do, and what they should do, is if they obviously have the lead at the end of lap 1, is they are just going to, they're going to start on the medium, and they're just going to simply cover off whatever happens behind. If they've got one of the McLarens or a Ferrari right behind them when we get to the pit stop window, then I think Red Bull will probably look for a gap to drop Max into as soon as possible to avoid an undercut. But if they've got, say, a 2-second or more lead for whatever reason, then I think Red Bull will just react to whatever the car behind does to make sure that they take the race win. So I think they're just going to keep it simple, Red Bull. That's what they should do. For Yuki Tsunoda, honestly, given that he's slightly out of position, I would just put Tsunoda on the hard compound tyre. Run him a bit longer into the race until, say, lap 30. Say, maybe lap 32, 33. And then give him, say, 20 laps on the medium to finish the race. And then be super quick on that tyre. Hasn't had a great deal of joy when it comes to overtaking as Tsunoda. But here at Monza, surely, in that Red Bull, he'll be able on fresher tyres to make some moves. For McLaren, it's going to be interesting. Of course, it depends on who's ahead after the start. Given, what we've seen this year and what tends to happen in general, you would maybe expect Piastri to be the first McLaren in the pack after the start, because Lando Norris tends to get poor starts. And as well, even though it doesn't matter massively here at Monza, Lando is on the dirtier side of the grid. And of course, Lando does tend to get worse starts than other drivers. So maybe he'll have an even worse start than usual and lose a couple positions on the first lap. But with McLaren, if they can keep second and third and keep right behind Verstappen, then I think what they'll probably do is split strategy and have one car go for the undercut and then maybe what the other car go a few laps longer to try and have fresher tyres for more so the end of the race to then get the overtake done that way. I think that's probably what McLaren will do. I think, if they want to beat Verstappen, that's probably the best option they have, is to split strategy and force Red Bull into doing something, which may play into their favour. But yeah, all depends really at the start in terms of them being able to do that. So we'll see whether they will be able, if they are second and third and right behind Max, we'll see if they can do that. If you have two cars right behind the leading car, that is what you should do strategically, is have one car go longer, one car go for the undercut. Because then you're trapping that rival car into either reacting to the undercutting car, which then favours the car going longer, because then they'll have fresher tyres for towards the end of the race. Or if the rival car ignores the undercutting car and decides to go as long as the car going longer, then that benefits the undercutting car, because then they'll be able to get the position. So if both McLarens are right behind Max, that's what they've got to do. They've got to split the strategy. And I would say whoever the lead McLaren is probably the one that should go for the undercut. And then the other McLaren, say, goes 3-4 laps longer, makes a pit stop, and then we'll see how it shakes out in the end. But that's what McLaren, if they're in that position, that's what they need to do. For Ferrari, for Lewis Hamilton, because he's in 10th, I would start him on the hard tyre. What have they got to lose? If the hard tyre proves today to be really strong, then that just benefits them even further. So yeah, I would start him on the hard tyre and just run him as long into the race as they can get away with. And then with Charles Leclerc, very interesting as to what he could do. Does depend a bit on the start. Obviously, if he has a really poor start, then we'll have to go a bit more aggressive with his strategy in terms of pitting sooner. If he gets away, though, and stays in 4th place, I think the best thing for Ferrari to do is to go longer into the race than the front three. If the front three all pit by, say, lap 26, 27, then I think Leclerc probably needs to go until lap 30, maybe even lap 35, before he makes his one and only pit stop. Because that's, if he's 4th in the pack, that's the only thing he can do to maybe grab a position or 2 or 3 if there's a massive tyre advantage to be had. So, yeah, that's the only thing Ferrari can do in that position. I mean, compared to Verstappen, I actually think in clean air, Ferrari should be quicker today by maybe 1/10 of a second or so. So, let's say Max pits on lap 25 and is the leader. Let's say Max again pits lap 25, then Leclerc could probably go another definitely 10 laps, given that he won't lose, giant amounts of time to Verstappen, given that the pace difference I don't think is going to be that big, because Ferrari will actually be quite quick on the same tyre life compared to Red Bull, but also having fresher tyres here at Monza, it's a benefit, but not anywhere near as much as other tracks. You only gain maybe 5-6 tenths of a second probably per lap on fresher tyres. And that's ultimately why Leclerc won the race last year, because even though he went for a stop less, Piastri just couldn't gain enough on fresher tyres, because Monza is not one of those tracks where you can gain 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds a lap on a car that hasn't, pitted for made a pit stop or whatever. So again, if Max pits on lap 25 and Max is the leader and Leclerc is even 3rd, never mind 4th, then that's what I would do, is keep Leclerc out and keep him out until, say, lap 32 at least, maybe even lap 35, and then bring him into the pits, slap on the hard tyres, and then Leclerc can push as hard as possible until the end of the race. And then if he finishes on the podium or even wins the race, great. But that's what I would do if I was Ferrari. That's the only choice they have if they're going to win the race today or even finish on the podium. That's the only option for the Ferrari team. And maybe you could say the same as well for Mercedes-Benz. If they're going to better their result, their possible and most probable result of 5th and 6th, they will also probably have to run quite a bit longer into the race than the leader does if they're going to have any chance of fighting for a podium. So I think Leclerc and the 2 Mercedes cars will probably go quite a few laps longer into the race than the leaders. And then we'll see if that pays back for them. We have seen it pay back for drivers in the past, but sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of a 50-50. It depends really on the pace difference you have when you come out on fresher tyres. So we'll have to see. But yeah, there's your tyre strategy talk, and ultimately we'll see who does what, but it will be interesting to see what certain teams decide to do. But that's what I would do if I was each team. As we have got 1 hour to go until lights out at Monza. Before, and I will, by the way, get into your comments in the chat, don't worry. I will start reading them out in a moment. I just wanted to do a quick channel update, because of course there is no Grand Prix next weekend. After this Grand Prix, there's a 2-week break. until the next one in Baku. So I just wanted to let you guys know about the plan of content between now and the next Grand Prix. So tomorrow, there will be a podcast reviewing the Italian Grand Prix released on the channel. And then later next week, probably on Friday, I will be uploading a recorded video. I know what the video is going to be about, but I'm not going to reveal it until obviously it comes out. And then I'm hoping to get another recorded video out, say beginning of the week after, which would be the beginning of the week of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. We'll see if that will, if that video, if I'll be able to get that video done. I think I will, but not a guarantee. So yeah, hopefully 2 recorded videos for you in the 2-week break. And then at the next Grand Prix, we will be doing both a qualifying and race watch along for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And then, of course, the day after the Grand Prix, there'll be a podcast reviewing the race in Baku. So plenty of content in the next 2 weeks coming your way. Obviously, the stream today, podcast tomorrow, hopefully 2 recorded videos, and then 2 important streams and another podcast for the next Grand Prix. And in terms of the timings of those streams for the next Grand Prix, I'll be live at 11:30 a.m. UK time for qualifying for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And then on the Sunday, the race day, I'll be live as usual, 2 hours before the race starts at 10 a.m. UK time, because the race starts at 12 p.m. here in the UK, which is 2 hours sooner than this Italian Grand Prix starts. Make sure to remember that in regards to the next Grand Prix. Also, one more thing I wanted to quickly say, and this is only for British people. At 3 p.m. today, annoyingly, the government is going to send an emergency alert to our mobile phones. So at 3 p.m. today, which is in pretty much 2 hours from now, if your phone starts going crazy and is doing an alert which sounds like the end of the world, don't worry, it's the government testing out the emergency alert. I wish they would not do it on a Sunday, but I guess they have to do it sometime. The last time they did it was on a Sunday, but was it 2 years ago? It was like Easter time, the last time they did it. It's like 2.5 years ago, I think it was. So yeah, if you're in the UK, just be wary of that. At 3 p.m. in 2 hours, that's going to go off. So, yeah. Just be prepared. If we have no safety car today, the race should be over after about an hour and 20 minutes. So, be towards the end of the race, that emergency alert. Probably, when we get to, say, lap, I don't know, 40, something like that. So, yeah, keep your ears... I was going to say keep your ears peeled, but I'm not sure that makes sense. Anyway, let's come to your comments of the chat. I'll have a quick drink again, and as well, in case you guys didn't hear at the start of the stream, Niblo, my co-commentator, will be joining us in probably about half an hour from now. So we'll get his thoughts, of course, ahead of the race. Right, so let's see what you guys are having to say. And hello to all of you. Hope you're all doing well. As almost all the comments are Will and Suragara. And Will saying Chaz knows how weak Lando Norris is. Maybe a bit too strong of a word that I would go for, but yeah, I'm pretty much on the same wavelength as you when it comes to Lando Norris. Lando is a very fast driver when he doesn't make mistakes and crack under pressure. We've seen that multiple times in his career. He's a very fast driver. And he is a very, he is very talented as well. We've seen some great overtakes from him. We've seen great performances. This is what disappoints me with Lando, is that we know he's capable of more. If Lando, in terms of this season and also last season to a degree, if what he did was the best of what we knew he could do, we probably wouldn't criticize him at all. Because at the end of the day, if you maximize your own performance, what can you do at the end of the day? If you maximize your own performance and you still don't win the championship, then, fair enough. But we know with Lando Norris that he can do more. Oscar Piastri's had a great season. I think Piastri's been brilliant this season, but Oscar Piastri is not a generational Formula One driver. He's a very good driver. Don't get me wrong. He is easily one of the top 5 best drivers on the grid, but he is not, again, a generational driver like a Verstappen, Hamilton, Senna level driver. And Lando Norris has proven in the last couple years that he can, most of the time, beat Piastri and be at least faster than Oscar. So for this season, for Piastri to have a superior head-to-head, especially in qualifying, nowhere near good enough. Nowhere near good enough. And again, it's down to Lando. The car is easily good enough. That car hasn't won every race this season, but it could easily have won every race so far up until this point. So, when you have a car like that, at the end of the day, it's just down to you as a driver to deliver the results and get the job done. And that's why I like Piastri so much, because he is so good at that. No wonder he is, no wonder he did win the F3 and then the F2 championship, because that's what you have to do as a champion. It's not about being the quickest, being the champion. It's about getting the job done, putting the points on the table on a consistent basis, getting enough wins, and again, getting the job done. That's what wins championships. You don't need to be, on pole every race, for example. There's been plenty of times this season, even though we say, some of the races have been boring this year, there's been plenty of times this season where the winner hasn't started on pole. Imola was an example of that with, Max Verstappen. Obviously the Hungarian Grand Prix, the Belgian Grand Prix, British Grand Prix, Miami Grand Prix. So again, it's about delivering when it matters most, and Lando that's what Lando lacks the most. He's just one of those drivers who doesn't deliver when it matters the most. He is, I wouldn't say he's the British Jarno Trulli, but I'd say he's a bit better than what Trulli was, but he is similar in terms of his traits, where he's super quick in qualifying, but when it comes to the races, he's very beatable. Right, let's have a look for some more comments. Hello to Astro, good to see you. Wilfon saying that the Moaning Yorkshireman and I have both said that Ocon has been better than Norris this season. Yeah, I'd stand by that. I do stand by that. If you don't know what Will is talking about there, in my mid-season driver ranking video, which, by the way, if you haven't checked out, there is a link in the description. if you want to see who I've ranked in what position. And yeah, I did have Ocon ahead of Norris. I think Ocon's had a very good season. And Lando, again, compared to what we know he's capable of, has not. And just because I've seen other people saying, oh, you can't rank Lando outside of the top 5 or even top 6 because he's second in the championship. That's irrelevant. Totally irrelevant. Where, in terms of where I rank drivers, it's based on a few things. One, have you consistently got the best result you could have? You know, how many points have you left on the table through your own errors? Secondly, how do you compare to your teammate? And how I rate their teammate obviously does play into how I then rank that driver. For example, the reason I've got Ocon in my top 10 drivers of the season so far is because I do rate Oliver Behrman, I wouldn't say highly, but highly enough that I think Ocon, having been the better driver this season, is very impressive. Now, with Piastri, I like Piastri. He's very good. But again, he's not a generational driver. And we have seen Lando Norris, especially last year, comfortably outperform Piastri over the course of a season. So we know what Lando is capable of. But he hasn't produced it. So, yeah. That's why I've got Lando as low down. There was one person who was like, oh, I'm unsubscribing because you've got Lando in 10th. Couldn't give a fuck, honestly. People who announce that they unsubscribe are just, it's just pointless to me. As people have said before, you don't need to announce your. It's not an airport. You don't need to announce that you're leaving or departing. If you want to unsubscribe or subscribe, it's your choice. But yeah, that's why I've got Lando as low down as I did for my driver rankings. If he keeps up, though, the type of performance that we saw in Hungary, in Austria, where he's making less mistakes and at least getting the best out of himself, then I probably will rank him higher when it comes to the end of the season. But I'm not going to rank him. I can tell you now, there is pretty much no chance I'm going to rank him in my top 3 for the season, because he just hasn't been good enough, even so far this season, to justify putting in the top 3. And to be honest, I don't think I could even justify putting him in my top 5. Probably for this season. The highest I can see me rating or ranking Lando Norris by the end of the season is probably 6th. So yeah, we'll see ultimately, but yeah, that's my thoughts on it anyway. Addy says, would have loved a Charles pole. It would have been great. It would have been great to see, but if Ferrari can win today, then who cares what happened yesterday? Astro saying, hoping for a Piastri win here as an Aussie, but with an all Ferrari podium. Would take something to get both Ferraris on the podium. I have to say, with Lewis Hamilton, of course, starting from 10th. And Astro's bold prediction is for Piastri to win from Leclerc, second, and Hamilton third, and then Antonelli, Russell, Bortoletto, Tsunoda, Alonso, Behrman, and Sainz. So I'm guessing that you think Verstappen and Norris are gonna have a collision or something. Maybe they will. We've seen it happen here before. I'm not sure Serigara's being serious, but I'll read out his prediction anyway. Antonelli first, Bortoletto second, Alonso third, Verstappen fourth, Leclerc fifth. Wilf One says Verstappen to win from Piastri, Leclerc, Russell, Antonelli, Norris, Hamilton, Bortoletto, Alonso, Albon. Other than Norris in sixth, I think your top 10 is, yeah, pretty much bang on. I could easily see that happening. Other than Norris sixth, Norris would have to be incredibly shit today to finish in sixth, because those two Mercedes are going to be, I wouldn't say miles off the pace, but they're going to be probably about a third of a second a lap, I think, away from the pace of the front cars. Let me just scroll down a bit more so I can find some other comments. Let me just Josh Ravel reckons Stroll will win. What the fuck? It's probably some silly bet he's done. It's accidentally gone too far to the bottom. There you go. Astro saying surprised there wasn't a week between the Dutch race and Monza. Reckon that would have been better than the 2-week break between this and Baku. Well, I wouldn't say normally, but I remember back in the day, you know, say 15 years ago, we used to come back from the summer break and it'd be Spa, and then we would have a 2-week break, and then it'd be Monza. Yeah, it's only been, I think, in the last 10 years have we had, as Monza been the week after a race. Of course, was it 3 years ago? It used to be a triple header. Which was hell, honestly, to cover here on the channel. A triple header. Triple headers are so hard to cover as a content creator, especially when you do watch-alongs. If the races are great, then that is obviously what you want, preferably. But yeah, even if they're great, it is so hard to cover an F1 triple header, which is why I'm thankful that this year we've not had. It doesn't feel like we've had that many triple headers. I think we've had 2 triple headers. We had Japan, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia in April, and then we had Imola, Monaco, and Spain in May. But yeah, since then it's been as it should be. I don't mind back-to-backs, but triple headers are just, yeah. Especially if you get a triple header where the races aren't good. It is brutal. Absolutely brutal. Especially trying to maintain some sort of encouragement. Yeah. I mean, looking back for me to 2023, where we had so many mid or boring races, and obviously Max won almost every race. I don't know how I did as many quali and race watch-alongs that season as I did. And I think that's ultimately that season, that's probably what caused me to do what I do, or what I have been doing for the last year, where I do quali and race watch-alongs for, say, most races, but certain weekends I'll miss qualifying or miss a race. I think that season is what did that for me, because it was that season felt like it was never going to end, and it was just Red Bull win after Red Bull win. 2023, because of how dominant Red Bull were and because of how long the season went on for, I think 2023 might be the worst Formula One season of all time. Maybe 2015, you could say, could rival that because Mercedes did win almost every race that year, but at least we didn't have triple headers back then. So yeah, it's good that we don't have as many anymore. I think if I look, I don't think we have that many triple headers next season. Let me just have a look though. So we start, by the way, a week earlier next season on the 8th of March for the Australian Grand Prix. And we are the first triple header is... Oh, actually, there's only 2 triple headers, and they're right at the end of the season. The first one is the US, and then Mexico, and then Brazil triple header. And then the final triple header is Vegas, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi. So thankfully, right at the end of the season. That's good. So a few changes though next year. Canadian Grand Prix is before the Monaco Grand Prix, which is utter woke nonsense as far as I'm concerned, and is in the month of May, the Canadian Grand Prix. We have the Madrid Grand Prix the week after the Italian Grand Prix. That's going to be an awful race. I am not looking forward to that Madrid Grand Prix. I really am not. And actually, unfortunately, that's going to be called the Spanish Grand Prix. The Circuit de Catalunya race is going to be called the Barcelona Grand Prix. And yeah, the rest of the calendar is basically the same as this year, with some, small changes here and there. But yeah, that Madrid race is going to be absolutely rubbish. Paul James Squibb says, what was this to do in response to an emergency? We're like, run to the nearest pub. Imagine though, if you are out, say in the pub or at a restaurant or whatever, enjoying your Sunday. Sunday's supposed to be a day of rest. And then suddenly you think the world's ending and everyone's phone's going off, and it's, just why? If they're going to do it, I'd rather them do it like early in the morning. At least it would wake people up. Like at 10. If they did it like 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, at least it would get it out of the way. Not in the middle of the afternoon. I hate that. Hello to Crystal, who says Piastri will win today. Let me see if there's any other comments I can read here. Astro saying, what if Ocon wins a race, Chaz, or wins 2 or 3 races in the remaining Grand Prix? I probably would have lost my voice by then if he's won 2 or 3 races, because that's how mental things would have to be. I mean, remember how mental that race was in Hungary where he did win? Yeah. Hello to Brabham. Good to see you. And also, cheers for the donation. Astro saying, I'd happily see the Catalunya one drop. That rarely seems to deliver. Yeah, even with that, the better final sector that they went back to, it does tend to be still a bit of a boring one, which I don't think is necessarily the track's fault. I mean, if we look at this year's Spanish Grand Prix, McLaren absolutely dominated. The 2024 race in Spain was good. I enjoyed that one. And then the 2023 one, again, was dominated by Red Bull. So if we had a Spanish Grand Prix where the teams were actually close, I think around that track it'd actually be very interesting. But you do tend at Catalonia, if you look at the history of that Grand Prix, it does tend to be a track where the best team ends up dominating. And it's because that track, it is historically, it's always been the track where if you have the best car, that's where it shows the most. And, McLaren and back in the day, and Ferrari and Red Bull, Mercedes have, had 1-2s there and just absolutely dominated. But once every 3 or 4 years, you do get a really good Spanish Grand Prix. But obviously it depends on the competitiveness of the field. Sebastian saying, Stefano Domenicali saying the races are too long. That's because new F1 fans feel like they don't want to watch F1 for 2 hours. Feels weird and strange. Yeah, Stefano's an absolute idiot. He just wants more sprint races because he's just an absolute clown. He's doing as good of a job as F1 boss as he did as Ferrari team boss. The reason young people don't watch the full, say, 2-hour races and watch highlights more, it's not because young people don't like F1 races. It's for 2 reasons. One, this generation is the TikTok generation, where everyone wants everything in a 10-second soundbite, or you know what I mean. Every people's attention span has shortened quite a bit. We shouldn't, and that is not a good thing, by the way. And we shouldn't accommodate to that, because this era we're going through in terms of attention span and content, it will change, and there will be a clamour for better and longer stuff probably in a few years. This old TikTok era will die out like every era does. But secondly, a lot of young people can't afford to watch Formula One. For example, in the UK, we only have one live race on free-to-air TV, which is on Channel 4, which is the British Grand Prix. All the other races are on Sky, and on, you got to pay. If you do Now TV, it's what, 20-30 quid a month. If you do the full Sky package like I have, it's way more. Young people can't afford these things. They're, they're at uni, paying for all that stuff, or they're, just getting started in the working world, paying rent, only just getting by. Most young people, they haven't got the money to be spending on subscriptions for Sky and going to races and spending 500 quid just to go to a full race weekend. Maybe if they lower the prices of tickets, and maybe if Formula One returned in a lot of countries to free-to-air TV, maybe young people would start watching again. I know what I'm saying is revolutionary to certain people, but fuck me. But of course, this won't happen. And the thing is Stefano Domenicali and the people running Formula One, Liberty Media, they know this. They know that the obvious solution would be to make it more affordable, but they're not going to do that, because all they care about is the bottom line. That is all that matters, is revenue, money, 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 money. They do not give a fuck about the quality of the product or whether it's affordable. It's about whether their bank balance has increased or not. And that's why I absolutely despise capitalism. And no, that's not me advocating any other system, because all systems are garbage on this planet. But capitalism, it's the best of a bad situation in terms of the choices you have to run society. Because there are some good things with capitalism, but when you have when you're full balls deep in capitalism, like Liberty Media are, especially being an American company, this is what you get. Just chasing the bottom line, not caring about the quality of the product, and the quality of the product ends up getting worse, but their bank balances get bigger, and that's what ends up happening at the end of the day. But like I said, the solution is obvious, but it will never happen. Anyway, I will now post a link of the stream out just one final time, and then in a couple minutes I'm going to bring Nib on, who should be joining us in a moment. So let me just quickly post this stream link out. Come join us here to watch along. Possible thriller at Monza. And hopefully we'll get some more people hopping on. Also, one thing I wanted to quickly announce is that from now on, if you watch my watch-alongs back, from now on, from this race watch-along on, going forward, I will make sure to timestamp when the actual session starts within the watch-along. So, for example, after this stream finishes, I will make sure to go back and find the exact timestamp when the when the race begins, and post that in the comments section, so that if any of you watch along back from now on, you can just go straight to the part where the race starts if you want to listen back to the to the important bit. And I'll be doing that for every watch along from now on. So yeah, just wanted to announce that for anyone who watches the streams back. And yeah, Rook's saying, so their proposed solution is to make the races shorter so you're paying 40 quid a month for less content. Genius. And not only that, the races would be worse if you make them shorter. The sprint races are awful. There's been maybe, one or two good sprint races out of how many have we had now? 15, 20? A lot of races, and you guys know this from being part of these watch-alongs and watching the races. Some races need 40 or 50 laps to get going. I mean, the Hungarian Grand Prix was probably a great example of that. It was pretty steady for 30, 40 laps, and then suddenly in the final stint, it came alive. But that wouldn't happen if you got rid of the final 30 laps and had it be only 35 or 40 laps long. So, yeah, the answer is not. And another thing, if you make the race shorter, as someone made a great point on X about this, if you make the races shorter, there'll be less highlights. Because Stefano's point was, young people are watching highlights more. There would be less highlights if you make the races shorter. So if anything, if you want them to see more highlights, if anything, make the races longer. But yeah, I just hope he doesn't get his way in terms of making every weekend a sprint race, because he will kill this sport, trust me. Anyway, let me see if Nib is on, and yeah, he is. So, let's just quickly set up a couple things, and then I'll just bring him on. So, hold on. All right, hello, are you there?
Hello, hello.
Yes, loud and clear. How are you?
I am very good, mate. How are you?
I'm good. As I told you yesterday, I'm pretty excited for this race. Obviously, because you have a skin in the game in regards to supporting Piastri, you're probably not as excited. You're probably a bit more nervous. But how pumped are you for today?
Well, until the final runs in Q3, I was like, oh, yes, this could be quite good. Then fair plays, Lando did a very good lap, got himself second, with, of course, Max pipping him at the end. But yeah, the start's going to be mega here. I mean, we had an incredible start last year where Piastri, of course, did an incredible overtake on Norris at the second chicane. And if we can get any repeat of that this year by any of the top drivers up there, it's going to be great. And this weekend's just been so great because it's been so close all weekend.
Yeah, it's only been a couple tenths at most, basically separating the top 3 or 4 teams. With the start, though, I mean, last year you had Lando on pole and Oscar second, and obviously Oscar, when he made the move around the outside, it was for the lead. With Max there, though, ahead of them, theoretically, it should be a bit harder for Oscar to overtake Lando, especially with Oscar on the racing line going into turn one. Do you think it will be quite a bit tougher for Piastri to get past Norris, given that Max will be there? Or do you think Oscar will still go for it if he can in overtaking Lando? Do you think he'll be a bit more cautious this time?
I don't think there'll be any I mean, of course, there'll be a degree of caution, but he's not going to hold back. The best way for him to be able um, to get Norris at the start, of course, would be for Max to come across, block him out, and then for Oscar to just focus on trying to get past Norris, whilst Norris is worried about Verstappen. But at the same time, Piastri can be too worried and focused on the cars ahead of him, and then get done from the cars behind him. So it's a tough balance here. It's good old Eddie Irvine on the grid. Nice to see. Um, but yeah, going to be exciting start. And of course, you can't rule out for Ferrari. You can't rule out Ferrari, but I still don't understand why they didn't give Leclerc the toe on the
Yeah.
final one in Q3. That has got to be some of the dumbest stuff I've ever seen, which of course you come to expect from Ferrari.
Yeah, I saw some of the quotes after. Lewis said, "Oh, I've never given a toe ever, and it would be pretty unfair." Fred said that Leclerc was fine not having the toe, and then Leclerc said that they never really discussed it, or that it was pretty much made clear that they were not doing that. So yeah, unclear or just not clear communication clearly through the team. I don't know why that wasn't a major. You'd think after practice when they do the debrief that would be a major point of, what are we doing in regards to who's giving the toe, or, especially with Hamilton's grid penalty. They could have had Hamilton maybe sitting, or maybe, backing off on the final lap to give Leclerc an even bigger slipstream effect. But yeah, I don't understand why. Because if they had given Leclerc that toe, may have not got pole, but he definitely would have been on the front row because he was only, I think, 0.13 away from Norris. So yeah, I don't understand it. Ferrari, that's the thing. They've actually done it here before with the toe, and it's obviously worked in terms of getting the front row. I remember, I think it was Raikkonen and Vettel did it here, and
Yeah,
Raikkonen ended up getting pole because he had a toe from Vettel. So they've done, that's the
that's
thing.
right.
They've done it here before and it's worked, but for some reason they just didn't bother. Yeah, I don't get it. But like you say, it's Ferrari. And with Ferrari, obviously at the start last year they did start fourth with Leclerc. Leclerc was second at the end of the first lap. They're going to need something like that today if they're really going to win the race. A quick word, though, on our pole sitter Max Verstappen. How great was that lap, especially considering, talking of slipstreams, he didn't have one at all on that final lap and produced an absolute stunner, didn't he?
Just what you expect from Max Verstappen. He's been on it all weekend, and in quali, he looked on it, and I mean, disgusting by FOM, our race direction, to not even be showing Verstappen crossing the line.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Absolutely diabolical. But yeah. Um, what more can you say about Max? He's the man. He's
Yeah.
one of the greatest of all time already.
Yeah.
It's just what you expect from him. The fact that he has the equal most amount of poles is this season is quite something.
And I think I sent you it. He has more poles this
That's more than
season.
Lando.
Yeah. Which
Same as Oscar.
I think that just shows right there. And I know, yeah, races are different, but I think that just shows that Max is still clearly the best out there. Because to have more poles than Norris, same amount as Piastri, is ridiculous in that Red Bull car, which has been comfortably slower than the McLaren this season. And yeah, like you said, the TV direction was absolutely abysmal, showing the Norris entourage right after Lando had crossed the line instead of showing Max. One thing, though, I wouldn't have known this at the time because obviously I have the sound turned off, but one funny moment that I'll let you tell people watching was when did it happen? Was it because Russell crossed the line after Max, didn't he?
Yes. Yes. He's like, and watch for Russell, and then Russell's like 4.5 tenths off.
Yeah, I don't think he improved. He didn't even improve on his lap
No.
or anything. Yeah, it was like so obvious he wasn't going to be anywhere near pole. It was absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, Mercedes are quite a bit away, unfortunately, in fifth and sixth place. Good to see Antonelli up there and in there for once.
Yeah.
Quick
Nice to see him having a better weekend.
before though we go into predictions, just want to get your thoughts in regards to, because obviously we haven't done a race watch along since Spa. We've had a couple races since then, Hungary and the Dutch Grand Prix. Obviously, quite a bit has changed since then. Oscar Piastri is now 34 points clear of Lando Norris with 9 races to go. Obviously, a couple sprint races as well. And yeah, what are you after coming out of Zandvoort? What were your thoughts from that race, especially in regards to the championship and how it is now?
Yeah, I mean, Oscar has clearly been the better McLaren driver this season, and it felt very much like the points gap before the DNF didn't reflect his dominance, mainly because of what happened in Melbourne, and
Yeah,
he's not been able to. Well, he's recouped those points, but just not being able to build on the lead. Obviously, not the way you want to build the lead, but shit happens. You got to take it, and bit of a misfortune for Lando. But as far as I'm concerned, as an Australian who's been watching F1 since about 2006, 2007, it's about time Australian had a bit of luck when it comes to reliability. So that's all I'll say. But a bit unfortunate for Lando, of course.
yeah, and you are right. As yeah, a lot of us, especially from Mark Webber's perspective, a lot of bad luck, and as you say, some luck definitely deserved at some point, given the suffering, especially that now obviously Oscar Piastri's manager Mark Webber had in his career. But yeah, as you say, shame for Lando, but one thing I want to make clear is Oscar Piastri was still comfortably going to win that race. Lando was, a second and a bit behind. The race, in terms of who was going to win, it was decided really on after the first corner. So, Piastri simply got the job done in qualifying and covered Lando off at the start, and that was it, really. So, and the reason I'm saying this is because, yes, the gap probably shouldn't be 34 points, but it would have been 16 points anyway in Piastri's favour, which is still a comfortable-ish lead. And Piastri, one narrative, given how this season has been, and it, in terms of how Oscar has performed compared to Lando, probably going to continue for the rest of the season, Piastri being the better driver. One narrative I hope that doesn't, carry on is that Lando has somehow been unlucky, because he absolutely has not. If Piastri wins the championship this year, it's because simply he has been the better driver. That's simple at the end of the day. Maybe Lando will win the qualifying head-to-head, because I know it's still close there, but that's irrelevant at the end of the day. It's about scoring points. And I think by the end of the season, Piastri will have probably comfortably more wins than Norris in terms of the total amount of wins. And will probably be, 40, 50 points clear by the end of the season. So I really hope that there isn't anyone, especially with any major interest in regards to what they say, trying that on in regards to claiming that Lando has been unlucky, because he just hasn't. I mean, if the championship was to end today, Lando, has been beaten simply by being not as good as Piastri, is the point I'm trying to make. But we have got just over 10 minutes to go, 12 and a half minutes to go until the race begins. What is your top three then prediction for this race?
I'm gonna go Verstappen, Piastri, and Norris. I would love to put Leclerc up there, but he's going to be having to Lico after 15 laps, like every other race. So, yeah, I'd love to see Leclerc on the podium here, but I don't think it's going to happen.
It is ridiculous the amount that still happens. When was it in Zandvoort? Was it lap 10 or something they started doing that?
Lap 11, I remember messaging you about it.
Ridiculous. And if you guys don't know what that means, basically it's lift and coast. And yeah, Leclerc has been told to do it every race, and some races he's been told to do it basically after 5, 6 laps even. It's just another reason why Ferrari this season have just not been fast enough. I think my prediction was Verstappen, Piastri, and Leclerc. So we'll see who ends up being correct in the end. And we'll just quickly go to you guys in the chat, as we've got just a few more minutes before lights out. And by the way, we're on 50 likes so far. Cheers for that. Let's try and get up though to let's try and get another 20 or 30 likes if we can in the next 10 minutes or so before the race begins. It'd be great if we could do that. And as well, quickly, before we get into the race, just want to quickly plug my donation page. If you want to support the channel financially, support the work we do here, make sure to click at the link that is either in the description, or Rook, my moderator, will post it in the chat. It's called Buy Me a Coffee. You guys can donate whatever amount you want and even attach a message to it. You can make it a monthly subscription. It's your choice. But if you want to support the channel, then make sure to go to that page and donate whatever amount that you want. And yeah, I'm sure Rook will post that in the chat in a moment. Let me see if I can find 2 or 3 more comments, and then we will get into this Grand Prix. Todd saying, let's go Max. Lando ain't unlucky, just not as good as Oscar, saying Astra, yeah. Lando, you can't use that argument at all. There will be Lando Norris fans who will use that argument, but I mean, I think even in regards to last year, I think Karun Chandhok said that Lando, to a degree, was unlucky because Max, he claimed that Max won the championship last year because of the first 5 or 6 races where Red Bull were miles clear of McLaren, which is just simply not true. So, yeah, that argument in terms of Lando being unlucky just doesn't fly. Angelo says he thinks Verstappen's going to win from Leclerc and Hamilton. Says pretty confident Hamilton can be on the podium. And Brabham says the only problem I have with Max is I need to see him compared to an A-grade driver in equal machinery. Hopefully we get that at some point. I mean, that's the hope in terms of him going to Mercedes, is that we'll see him alongside George Russell. I think we will see him at Mercedes at some point, probably in a couple years. And if he does have Russell as his teammate, then we'll find out, because Russell is probably, between him and Leclerc, he's probably the closest driver to Max currently in Formula One. Will saying David Croft is the worst commentator in the world. Yeah, I've not been enjoying having to listen to him for the last couple races, so thankfully we're doing this. Looney Classic says Charles should have gotten his own pole if he wanted pole. I mean, he did fail to improve on his final lap, so even without the toe, he didn't do a good enough job on that final lap. But I still think Ferrari should have, done that, giving him the toe, because with how close it was at Monza, that's really when you should do it, is when it's close like that, because it can make that, couple tenths of a second difference that could take you from where he is on the grid to maybe pole position. But 4th on the grid is where he is. But let me, before we get into this race, finish up the poll results and let's go through who you guys have voted for. So 463 votes, and I asked you guys who will win the Italian Grand Prix today, and 45% of the vote has gone to Max Verstappen, the pole sitter, 26% for Charles Leclerc, 15% for Lando Norris, and 12% for Oscar Piastri. So, majority you going for Verstappen, as me and Nib have gone. Let's see if he can hang on for the win. His last win was in Italy at Imola, and that was 3.5 months ago, which in season, I think that's the longest gap he's had in between. I think last season was the longest gap he's had in between race wins in, say, the last 4 or 5 years. But this current gap is one of the longest he's had, and I know he'll be absolutely desperate to get the win today. Let me find a couple more comments if I can. Andrew saying, go Williams, hoping for points. Hopefully, they can show a bit more of what they showed on Friday. They were very disappointing yesterday. But, the 13th and 14th, the two Williamses. And let me see if I can find another comment quick. Hello to G Walker. Good to see you. And no, I don't think I can find any more. Anyway, 5 minutes to go. So let's get into it. And we'll start by going through some key stats and figures that you guys need to know of before we begin here at Monza. Firstly, the championship standings. Oscar Piastri comes into this race 34 points clear of Lando Norris. Norris has to at least beat Piastri today, and really has to beat Piastri in every race going forward for the rest of the season. Max Verstappen in third, just over 100 points off the lead. George Russell in fourth. Leclerc in fifth. Hamilton sixth. Antonelli seventh, and level on points with Alexander Albon. Shows you how great Albon has been this season. Nico Hülkenberg in ninth, and Isaac Hadjar after his podium at Zandvoort in the top 10 of the championship. On the constructors' side, McLaren 324 points clear. McLaren are not that far away from wrapping up the Constructors' Championship officially. Should be in the next probably 2, 3, maybe 4 races when they'll be able to do that. Ferrari in second, though, only 12 points clear of Mercedes third. And then Red Bull fourth, and a bit closer to Ferrari than they were, but still a bit away. And then Williams in fifth, 18 points clear of Aston Martin sixth. Racing Bull's only a couple points behind, obviously after that podium. Sauber in eighth. They'll be looking to pick up a few points today. And then Haas in ninth, and Alpine in 10th. But let's get into some key stats regarding the front-running teams for this race. For McLaren, their last win at Monza was 4 years ago with Daniel Ricciardo. They've only taken 2 wins, though, at Monza in the last 15 years. Last year, second and third should have been the win, but they screwed themselves out of it. Can they go one better today? For Red Bull, their last win at Monza was 2 years ago with Max Verstappen. They've also had only 2 wins at Monza in the last 10 years. Last year was a disaster for them. They were 6th and 8th and miles away from the race win. Looking a lot better, though, this time around. Ferrari, of course, their home race. They won last year's Italian Grand Prix. Can they do it again? They've took 2 wins at Monza in the last 10 years. And yeah, 1st and 4th it was last year. Can they do that again? And for Mercedes, their last win at Monza was 7 years ago with Lewis Hamilton. They've actually been the most successful team here at Monza in the last 10 years. 4 wins in the last 10 years. Last year, though, 5th and 7th. Probably about where they're going to finish today. But let's get into your starting grid for the Italian Grand Prix. On the front row, the world champion Max Verstappen, and second, Lando Norris. The championship leader, Oscar Piastri, in third, with Charles Leclerc, last year's race winner at Monza, in fourth. The third row, George Russell and Kimi Antonelli, all Mercedes third row. Fourth row, Bortoleto and Fernando Alonso. Completing the top 10, the Red Bull of Tsunoda and the Ferrari of Hamilton, serving his 5-place grid penalty. Just outside of the top 10, Oliver Behrman and Nico Hülkenberg. On the 7th row, the 2 Williamses of Sainz and Albon. 15th and 16th, Esteban Ocon, and it was going to be Hadjar, but he's now starting from the pit lane, so it will be Lance Stroll in 16th. 17th will be Colapinto, with Lawson in 18th, and then it will be Gasly and Hadjar starting from the pit lane. But here we go. 53 laps it will be, and the formation lap will be underway in a moment. Let me just update that Hadjar and Gasly are 19th and 20th now in the pack. And yeah, 18...
second, Charles.
No problem. 18 cars will be on the grid, and 2 cars will be starting from the pit lane. Max Verstappen on pole, and his pole lap, the fastest in F1 history. Highest average speed for any lap ever. Can the fastest man ever deliver the race win? Brooks saying everyone on mediums except Albon, Ocon, Stroll, Hadjar and Gasly, who are on hard tyres. So let me just update that. That's the formation lap about to begin. And Lawson is on the soft compound tyre, which is interesting. So formation lap begins right now. So we're underway for the formation lap. So, yeah, Albon, Ocon, Stroll, Hadjar and Gasly on the hard compound tyres, and then Liam Lawson on the soft tyres. So everyone in the top 13 is on the mediums, and then Colapinto is the only other driver on medium tyres. As the front of the pack, Max Verstappen is just exiting the second chicane. And yeah, Red Bull, the last time Max started on pole here was when McLaren last won here with Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo got the jump at the start and then never really looked back. Obviously, Max and Lewis Hamilton had that infamous collision, and it all led to a McLaren 1-2. If we have a race like that day, then we'll all be very happy, because that was an absolute classic Grand Prix. As the front three now on the straight between the Ascari chicane and the Parabolica. And they're just shown there on the broadcast. This is the 75th Italian Grand Prix at Monza. One of the spiritual homes of Formula One, along with obviously Silverstone, Monaco, Spa. As here is Charles Leclerc. Very nice red helmet. Schumacher-like. As Max getting his tyres fired up is Hulkenberg has been told to box to retire the car. What a shame, given how quick Sauber have looked this weekend. Hulkenberg coming into the pit lane, and he is out of this race. That is a big shame. But that's good news for the Williams team. In terms of the other bits of tyre information, I will make sure to update that once we get through the first lap or so. I haven't got the time yet. As just want to update there that Hulkenberg is sadly out of the race. As the final couple cars line up for the final European race of the season. His last win was in Italy. Can Max win in Italy yet again? Let's find out as the lights now coming on. It's now 2, 3, 4, 5 lights. And lights staying off for quite a while, but there you go. We're underway. A great start for Fernando Alonso in the pack. As Max Verstappen side by side with Lando Norris, it goes onto the grass. And does he go for the inside line? He does, but Max is going to keep around the outside, and he goes off and keeps the position. As Piastri loses position to Charles Leclerc, but will Verstappen give the position back? I don't think he will, at least not for now. As now, up to the second chicane. Will Norris go for the outside line? No, he will not. As Max keeps it together. As, yeah, Alonso, I think, is up to 6th place. One of the Mercedes has had a disastrous start. What a move by Piastri round the outside of Leclerc at Lesmo 1. And he needed to make that work. As Norris saying, yeah, what is this idiot doing? Come on, he put me in the grass and then he's cut the corner. Well, I want to see a replay, quite frankly. As, yeah, I think it's Antonelli, I think is down in about 11th place. An awful start there. As Alonso is 6th with Bortoletto in 7th. And then it's Hamilton 8th. Tsunoda 9th, and Antonelli, I think, is in 10th, as Max has been told to give back the position as we begin lap 2, and Max lets Lando through, but now he's going to immediately come back in as Leclerc tries to overtake Piastri into turn 1, but Piastri keeps the position. But no, Leclerc round the outside gets the better exit, and Leclerc pulls ahead. The Ferrari has the better straight line speed. Can Piastri come back at Leclerc? Leclerc having a look there at Verstappen, but nothing doing. So Leclerc into third, and Norris in the lead. There's outside of the top 10, it's Behrman 11th, and then Sainz, Albon, Ocon, Lawson. Great start for him on the soft tyre in 15th, and then Stroll, Colapinto, Hadjar, and Gasly. But this isn't over, even though Max has let Lando through. He's right behind him, as Piastri also right behind Leclerc. And looks like he's going to go for a move here, as the DRS is already enabled as we begin lap 3. What an incredible start to this race. As here comes Oscar Piastri. Got the DRS. Leclerc hasn't. And Piastri goes for the outside. Will he hang it round the outside? No, he won't. But Leclerc locks up and goes deep. And Piastri, he tried to go round the outside. That was the wrong move because Leclerc has now squeezed him out. And Piastri now a bit further back. As Russell now under pressure from Bortoletto. He's got past Alonso. And is Bortoletto going to go past Russell? He's going to try the outside, but no. He doesn't do it. What a start we have had here. As Bortoletto is up to 6th. But Nib, from what you remember of what you saw, was that the right decision for Max to let Lando through?
Yeah, he had to let him back through. Unfortunately for Verstappen, it was the right decision to let Norris through in the end. But my God, this race in between Leclerc and Piastri has been good. Around the outside the first Lesmo, you can't even do that on the F1 game.
Absolutely incredible move, as it's not going to end because Leclerc has absolutely no pace. He's nearly 3 seconds behind Verstappen, who's only half a second behind Norris. Remember, the McLaren is quite slow down the straights. As here comes Max Verstappen. Will he send it on Norris into turn 1? He's going to go for the outside. He's sending it. And what a move by Max Verstappen. And he's back where he, I'm sure, feels he deserves to be, in the lead. What a move. What a start to this Italian Grand Prix. Fastest lap as well.
Leclerc locked up again.
Yeah, and Leclerc, he's just about kept ahead enough into the second chicane. But Leclerc is all over the place in this race so far. And he's 2.7 behind Norris in second. And about 3.5 seconds off the lead after 4 laps.
Just brilliant by Verstappen. Was able to brake later on the outside and then squeezed Norris on the apex, giving him no option but to go over the curb a little bit on the inside. And just brilliant by Verstappen.
As Piastri is saying on the radio, he wants Leclerc to get the position back. So I'm assuming that Leclerc has gone off track, trying to...
Yeah, he locked up at turn 1 at the first chicane.
Right, we'll have to see a further replay of that. It's Max Verstappen has pulled himself out of DRS range. He is now in the lead by just about a second, as Leclerc still under pressure from Piastri, but looks a bit more comfortable this time around, as Lewis Hamilton passes Fernando Alonso. The home crowd will love that. And Hamilton up to 7th. And looking good so far. Here's a replay of the start. Nib, I'll let you take us through it when they get to it.
That was a good move by Hamilton on Alonso. But yeah, even when Piastri's half a second behind, he's only gaining 2/10 down the straight. But yeah, Norris actually got a very good start. And Verstappen couldn't close him off. Squeezed him onto the grass. Then Norris got up the inside, and Verstappen couldn't make the corner, but he was also going to get pushed off if he did try to make the corner. So that's an interesting one. And then behind you can see Piastri, everyone, all those top 4 cars getting closer to each other as Piastri is once again close to Leclerc coming down towards. And Norris got a very bad exit out the second chicane as Piastri now. You might want to take over, Chaz.
Yeah, Piastri right on Leclerc again as they begin lap number 6. And here he comes to the outside. Will he hold it round the outside? He's going to try, and Leclerc, thankfully, is such a good driver. He doesn't understeer straight into him. And Piastri, brilliant move. And he's up to 3rd. Now he needs to hunt down his teammate who's suffering a bit. Norris is now 1.6 behind Verstappen. So Verstappen really starting to pull away, which is important for his race. But Piastri now is going to push hard. Leclerc now under pressure from Russell. I think Leclerc might have damaged his tyres from these lockups, quite frankly. But in terms of the start there with Max, the reason they told him to give the position back was to avoid the possibility of a penalty. But I'm not sure I mean, it's an interesting one. I'm not sure if I was the stewards, I'm not sure I would have told him to give the position back because I don't think that was a clear-cut case. But Red Bull felt it wasn't worth risking. But in the end, it's worked out great for them because Max Verstappen on lap 7 is now 2 seconds clear of Lando Norris. What a race Verstappen has had after passing Norris.
I think it was probably the right decision.
Yeah, maybe. It feels to me like a bit of a 50-50. I mean, from Red Bull's perspective, better to be safe than sorry on that one. But
yeah, sorry, I stopped speaking because you're calling some action. But yeah, just to avoid the risk because it happened in a previous race. I can't remember, but to me it looked like Lando wasn't predominantly ahead into turn 1 or whatever nonsense they use to measure everything nowadays. But Norris did what Verstappen would do. So
yeah,
enough.
I think Max was definitely ahead at the apex. Where again, that rule is absolutely stupid. But yeah, but in the end, it's worked out for Red Bull. Max Verstappen 2 seconds clear as we're about to begin lap 8. Yeah, Lewis Hamilton is now up to 6th place, having a great race. Hamilton, as Leclerc still massively under pressure from a car behind. It's now George Russell as Leclerc. I think, has he lost the DRS from Piastri? Yes, he has. And now that's going to put him under pressure from Russell. As Piastri not really making any gains on Norris so far. As Piastri is currently about 6 seconds off the lead. So that battling with Leclerc cost Piastri a lot in terms of being quite a bit closer to the lead of this race. But still a long way to go. We're only on lap 8 of 53. As this battle, we're looking at Russell and Leclerc. Also, it was shown on screen that an incident between Tsunoda and Hamilton is under investigation, I think, for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. So we'll see what happens with that. Here's a replay of Isaac Hadjar back in 18th, trying to pass Colapinto. And he just goes too deep and goes to the never-ending chicane escape road. And presumably, yeah, he did. He let through Colapinto. As Max Verstappen now 2.5 seconds clear. What a pace this is from Red Bull, as Russell slightly closer on this occasion, but you can see he's just not gaining hardly on Leclerc. That Ferrari very quick down the straights. In the speed trap in qualifying, Ferrari were, I think, about 3 or 4 kilometers an hour quicker than Mercedes. So, gonna have to be really quick out of the parabolica if he's gonna get that move done. As Lewis Hamilton hasn't gained on these two, and Hamilton has still got Bortoleto and Alonso not that far behind him, as there is quite a train behind Yuki Tsunoda in 9th, going all the way down to Lance Stroll, who's under investigation for something, in 16th place. And 5-second time penalty for Esteban Ocon for forcing another driver off the track. We haven't seen it, but hopefully we'll get a replay in a moment. As Russell got a brilliant exit from the Ascari chicane. Just needs to try and carry that through parabolica. And he does. He's a slight bit closer on that lap 10. But still, he's barely gaining anything. That is incredible. The DRS is barely working on that Ferrari to be able to... It reminds me of 2019, where it was the same scenario. Mercedes on the Ferrari, where the Ferrari... I think even the Ferrari was still quicker down the straights than the Mercedes with DRS.
About a tenth.
Yeah. Absolutely mental. As this battle looks like it's going to rage on probably until the first pit stop. As Max is now 3 seconds clear of Norris in the lead. As here is Ocon and Stroll, and that's to me, that's very harsh. Could Ocon have done anything differently there? Yeah, that's a harsh one for me.
Need to see like an off-board shot of it, to see how bad it was.
It didn't really look like Ocon moved that much.
Yeah, but then Stroll did have to go on the grass, to be fair, to make it 2 cars side by side. So, might be a fair penalty.
As Russell a bit further behind on this occasion, so not going to be going for a move. Lewis Hamilton is starting to close in a bit more. That's Max Verstappen, fastest lap, 1:23.0. He is absolutely flying out front. He's nearly 3.5 seconds clear of Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri is about 8 seconds off the lead after 11 laps. This is a tremendous display by Verstappen. And I've got to say, the pace of that Red Bull a lot quicker than I expected. Go on.
Verstappen about 0.3 of a second a lap faster than the McLaren, so that's pretty good. And then everyone else behind Leclerc is about a second off Verstappen's pace.
Yeah, in a totally different race, really, as Leclerc looks a bit more stable now than he was a few laps ago. Russell is not pressuring him as much. Russell's tyres, though, I think might be beginning to suffer in the dirty air of the Ferrari on lap 12 now. Lewis Hamilton is gaining on this pair. Only 1.4 behind Russell.
Huh. Max is on fire.
Yeah, this is one of the best performances of his season. One of the best performances I've seen from him in a while. And that's not because he doesn't perform that well consistently. But yeah, this is just incredible what I'm saying. I expected McLaren to be maybe per lap a tad quicker than Red Bull. But this is just amazing what we are seeing. I did not expect this whatsoever. And Ferrari with Leclerc is, about 11, 12 seconds off the lead. He's losing, as Nib said, a second a lap to Verstappen. As Ocon, yes, saying there was no space. And defending himself there on the radio, but thankfully he hasn't had a pit stop yet, so he'll have to take it the pit stop. He's not really going anywhere at the moment, so doesn't make a massive difference. As on lap 13, Max Verstappen, new fastest lap. Another 23.0, and he's nearly 4 seconds clear of Norris. If he keeps this up, he will be able to have a very comfortable pit stop window, because he won't have to worry about an undercut. As now the train is now from Bortoletto in 7th all the way back to Lance Stroll in 15th place, as Liam Lawson has pitted. He started on the soft tyre, so Lawson going straight for the hard compound, as Hadjar has just overtaken Colapinto. So let me just update who's on what tyre. So no one on the soft tyre now. You've got Ocon, Albon, Ocon, Stroll, and Hadjar on the hard tyre, Colapinto on the medium, and then Gasly and Lawson on the hard tyres. So we'll see how the hard tyre runners do, especially Albon. We know Albon does like to run a bit longer in races than others, and he's on the hard tyre, so I'd imagine he's going to run pretty long into this race, probably do another 20 laps on that tyre. He's right behind his teammate Sainz. Wouldn't be surprised if Albon, well, if Sainz gets told to move out the way in a few laps, if Sainz starts to hold him up, as, yeah, still this train. But Bortoletto doing a great job in 7th. And if we could hang on to that result, that would be massive for Sauber. As here is Russell, only 6/10 or 7/10 behind Leclerc. Mercedes. I wouldn't say Mercedes are quicker than I expected. I think the only reason Russell's fighting Leclerc here is because Ferrari is so slow. Which, again, I don't think anyone expected this lack of pace. Not just from Leclerc. It's not like Lewis Hamilton's miles quicker. Hamilton is nearly 3 seconds behind Russell. As Max Verstappen is now just over 4 seconds clear of Lando Norris. Piastri in 3rd, 10 seconds off the lead after 14 laps. By the time the pit stop phase comes, Piastri's going to be nearly a pit stop off the race leader at this rate. But yeah, on lap 15, we're just in a holding pattern, unfortunately, because, and we've had our criticisms, of course, of DRS in the past, but the DRS appears to be almost completely ineffective. And that's why that we're not getting any battles, because Russell can barely gain anything on Leclerc and vice versa down the field. And with Bortoletto, he's definitely not going to get overtaken, because Sauber were the quickest team in the speed trap in qualifying. So good luck to anyone behind a Sauber, or that Sauber today. Obviously, Hulkenberg, sadly, out of the race, as Liam Lawson in 19th, only driver who's pitted, and he's gaining quite a bit on Gasly, the car ahead of him, on the fresher tyres. As Leclerc doing a bit better, pulling away from Russell now. The gap now just over a second. And that will certainly help Leclerc's chances. Pace definitely looking better for Leclerc compared to the cars behind than it was a few laps ago. As Leclerc being told this is good, nice and clean. So presumably he's now in the rhythm. But he is 13 seconds off the lead. He's not losing as much time to the leaders as he was, but he's still miles behind. I mean, he's only 3 seconds behind Piastri, but I'd be amazed
Yeah.
if he catches Piastri.
Now, Leclerc's been doing our personal best laps for the last few laps now. It's about 6 tenths off Verstappen a lap, about 3 tenths off Piastri. Piastri's tyres certainly did get hurt quite a lot behind Leclerc early on. Not been able to get anywhere near the leader's pace, really.
Yeah, he's when he passed Leclerc, he was about 2.5, 3 seconds behind Norris, and now he's 6 seconds behind Norris. As we're on lap 17, pit window opens in 5 or 6 laps for the medium tyre runners, as Max Verstappen, another fastest lap, 1:23.001. And he's about 4.3 seconds clear of Lando Norris.
Actually starting to put in some better times now. He's only a tenth off Norris and Verstappen on that previous lap. But as you said, the gap is 6 seconds. And yeah, now Leclerc is well and truly extending his feet away from Russell, who's in 5th.
Yeah, and feels like especially the top 6 are just managing their tyres until the pit window opens. Alonso still stuck behind Bortoletto. Tsunoda, though, has dropped over a second behind Alonso, and Antonelli is only 4 tenths or so behind. So Tsunoda might be under threat in a moment. And we're actually looking at Behrman in the little small square, who's right behind those two. Behrman having a good race right behind those two. Behrman might be able to get a point or two today, as the very small rear wing on that Ferrari flies through the Parabolica. And Leclerc, as Nib said, continuing to pull away from Russell. But I don't really see what Ferrari can do to get onto the podium here, as Max does a 1:22.8 and is now 4.7 clear of Norris. I think I've said it before that Max Verstappen is... Oh, hold on, Antonelli dive bomb on Tsunoda. Great move. Had to make that move. And he's up to 9th place. Good move. A clean move, importantly, for Antonelli after what we saw at Zandvoort. But I was going to say that, yeah, Max Verstappen, I've said it before, that he doesn't tend to experience tyre wear or dirty air or stuff like that. When he's in this form, he is absolutely relentless.
Yep. He's probably going to say another purple. He's just gone purple in the middle sector.
As, Sainz being noted for not rejoining the track properly at the second chicane. But yeah, Max is now 5 seconds clear of Lando Norris. Here's a replay of Norris at second Lesmo. A replay of nothing. Pretty much.
Yep, and there you go. Fastest lap, 22.7.
He's absolutely humiliating the rest of the field. 5.2 clear of Lando Norris as Oliver Behrman pits. Interesting, quite early. A few laps before the pit window, but Behrman clearly feeling as though an undercut, or Haas feeling that an undercut can work here, as not the greatest pit stop, but he is away on the hard tyres. So we'll see if Red Bull and Tsunoda will respond, as Behrman will drop to 18th place. And actually 19th. So Liam Lawson has made a position there through pitting so early. So Lawson, once everyone pits, Lawson's going to be up in probably 7th place. And I'd imagine they're going to try and run Lawson to the end. So keep your eye on Liam Lawson. If he can keep his tyres in good condition, he might be in for something good at the end of this race. But obviously all the medium-tired runners are going to move on to the hard tyre, as we are now on lap 20. And yeah, Red Bull coming out for Yuki Tsunoda's Verstappen, now 5.5 clear of Norris. He's having a lot of fun out there, is Max. And here comes Tsunoda, who will come out behind Lawson. Will he come out ahead of Behrman? As about a second quicker of the pit stop, so I think he probably will rejoin just about ahead. As there goes Lawson. And yeah, Tsunoda covers that off, so that's good for Tsunoda's race. But Behrman now right in the slipstream. And if Behrman wants the position, he's going to have to send it here and now. The second chicane goes for the outside. Will he send it? Yes, he does. And, well, Yuki Tsunoda braking incredibly early. And Behrman has absolutely mugged him off. There you go. As here's Gasly, I presume, going off at the second Lesmo. And, yeah, just bouncing slightly to the gravel. Alpina, absolutely nowhere. Slowest team. But on lap 21, we have more cars in. Bortoleto and Alonso, they were 7th and 8th. And this is a pit stop race between Aston Martin and Sauber. And, oh, they're going to be side by side. Bortoleto had a slower stop. And nope, Alonso has just about won it. So Alonso gets the jump. And can Bortoleto come out ahead of Lawson? No, he can't. Alonso keeps the position ahead of Lawson, though. That's a shame for Bortoleto. Has Alonso, very importantly, kept ahead of Lawson. So Alonso now in 15th place. As Max Verstappen out front, nearly 6 seconds clear of Lando Norris. And Alonso braking so much later on the pit entry. Hopefully he didn't speed in the pit lane, but yeah, that was Schumacher-esque, attacking the pit entry line. Obviously had plenty of experience at that in the refueling era. And yeah, that was brilliantly done by Aston Martin and Alonso. There's quite a bit of gravel on the track there at the second Lesmo, but they won't be stopping the race to clear that up, thankfully. As Verstappen, 6 seconds clear of Norris. Piastri about 12 just over 12 seconds off the lead. Leclerc is about 17 seconds off the lead. If Max pitted now, he would come out probably 3 or 4 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. So there is a clear gap to pit, but he definitely won't want to pit yet. As that is Bortoleto passing Lawson with that super top speed. So Bortoleto, that's an important move. He's up to 16th. But let me just update who's on what tyres. Because Alex Albon in 9th is the highest placed runner on the hard compound tyre, and he hasn't pitted yet. So watch out for Albon. He'll be very quick at the end of this race on that medium tyre. And then you got Ocon on the hard tyre. He's got a 5-second penalty, though. Stroll on the hard tyre. Hadjar on the hard tyre. Colapinto on the medium. Gasly on the hard. And then everyone else behind on the hard compound tyre. Goes down the pit straight. Can Behrman pass Lawson? Got a lot more grip. But Lawson had DRS on that occasion. Behrman tries to get a better exit, but not sure if it's good enough for him to do a move at the second chicane, and it's definitely not. So this is a big issue for Behrman. And Yuki Tsunoda there, looking a bit at sea. Last of all, as here is how Bortoletto got past. And yeah, Lawson went deep, and Bortoletto did the switchback, got the better exit, and then used the superior straight line speed of the Sauber. So nicely done there. As this is Antonelli going deep at the second chicane, not going to the proper escape road, so he'll be noted for that. As still Behrman and Tsunoda stuck behind Lawson. In terms of the front few cars, the closest battle is Lewis Hamilton. He's only just over a second and a half behind George Russell. Ferrari are quicker than Mercedes, so really Hamilton does need to get past Russell. I think given Ferrari's lack of pace, fifth for Hamilton would be a good result, given that it's the best really he can get. But
Hamilton has been gaining.
Yeah, as we're now looking at Albon behind Sainz, and wouldn't be surprised if Albon is being, or if Sainz is being told to let Albon through. And yeah, Sainz is being told, and Sainz says he doesn't agree. As out front, Max Verstappen 6.3 seconds clear as, oh no, Alonso got an issue with his car. Looks like a suspension or something. But Alonso is out of this race. What a shame. Alonso was heading for probably a seventh or something. Probably the unluckiest man in Formula One currently. As there you go. Alex Albon is now up to 8th. And that was the right decision because Albon on the superior strategy.
Alonso has definitely done that in Ascari because he had just done his PB middle sector. So that's quite unfortunate.
And yeah, he's just said suspension failure. And yeah, left rear is up in the air. Here we go. Oh, it's the front right on the yeah, that is bad having a failure. Because I mean, it's not like that exit curve is very rough or anything. That is poor on Aston Martin's end. And that's the thing, they've actually, in the last couple years, to our disagreement, they've made the curbing a lot smoother here, haven't they? So
yeah,
it's not as rough going over the curbs here at Monza as it used to be, where you could have that in the past.
That's very unusual.
Only could happen to Alonso, though, who is out
Truly.
of this race. So 2 cars out. And Williams will be very happy to see that, because now that's a big, important runner in the midfield out of play. As Alex Albon now 8th on the hard compound tyre and needs to push hard now in these next few laps to maximise his strategy. As they're saying to Piastri, considering Plan A plus 15, do you think that's possible? Plan A plus 15, that's quite quite long.
Plan A plus 15. What, are they going to put on softs at the end, which would be madness?
Yeah,
But
that's the only thing. Surely, if you go that long, that's the only thing you probably would do. But why? He's not near anyone really to make that work. So I don't get that.
yeah, this turned out quite unfortunate. The top four are literally about the same gap apart between each other, so nobody's near bloody anyone.
Yeah, this is not how we hoped. As Sonoda has just passed Lawson, so Lawson now at the very back. Lewis Hamilton is closing on Russell. He's 1.3 behind, so hopefully we'll get that little battle between the ex-teammates. As George Russell actually pits to cover off,
for God's sake,
that happening. As Russell onto the hard tyres. He's going to come out, I think, in between Hadjar and Colapinto, but he's still going to have a lot of midfield cars to overtake. So now time for Lewis to apply hammer time and do some good in laps. And yeah, he does come out just ahead of Colapinto. So Russell into 12th position. As Norris being asked, what are your thoughts about continuing until we put a soft tyre? And he says, yeah, I mean, we may as well continue for now. Yeah. I think they're just trying anything they can at this point. They're too far behind for it to work, but yeah. As all contacting the ex-teammates, Sonoda and Lawson, and good friends. Sonoda asks, what is he doing, bro? And Lawson, he got back ahead, and then Sonoda got back ahead, so Lawson let him back through. I think that was just a racing incident, to be honest.
I mean, they were going to side pod glitch if they went even further, so that wouldn't have been good.
As another Mercedes in, it's Antonelli, who's got a few laps longer than his the rivals he was racing. So let's see where he'll come out. He was just ahead of Behrman, and he has actually come out ahead of Bortoleto, so he has jumped. He's way up, and obviously Bortoleto got held up a bit. So that is brilliant. Antonelli has done good in laps, used the pace of the car, and he's up into what will be probably a net 7th place. On lap 30 of 53, only 23 laps remain. We're just over halfway through this race. As those mediums look pretty good at this stage for Max Verstappen on that slow-mo.
Oh, Piastri fastest lap.
122.7 exactly. And yeah, the front four, the gap has been the same for quite a while. They're all just managing their tyres and trying to go as long as possible. This is, again, a mark for me against Pirelli, this, because they brought the C5, C4, and C3 tyres, and look how far they're going into the race. When last year we had a 2-stop for a lot of cars. So I don't get how it's got so much worse in the space of a year. But there you go. As George Russell does the fastest lap and passes, Gasly is overtaking Colapinto. Probably been told to let Gasly through, I'd imagine. As I gotta say, Alex Albon is lapping at a pretty good pace. He's pulled away from his teammate quite a bit. And he's lapping, I think, about the same pace as Lewis Hamilton ahead of him.
Faster than Lewis, actually.
Yeah, so Albon is really putting himself in a good position for later on in this race. He's really good at this, going longer into races. He's really got good at it. Carlos Sainz, his teammate, comes in and will have a bit fresher tyres than Bortoleto and Behrman, who have gone past him. Sainz can still score points, but he's going to have to really get on with it if he's going to do so. So Sainz rejoins in 16th place on lap 32. But let me just update the tyres quickly. As we're seeing a replay of Gasly, I think, passing Colapinto. And it was actually because Colapinto went deep. At the first chicane. And then Gasly went through. The two Alpines currently 11th and 12th. Alpine are definitely not going to score points. Even though they're running longer, they just don't have the pace to make it work later on. As this is Lance Stroll right behind Ocon in the battle for 7th. Ocon and Stroll have not pitted yet. Ocon still has a 5-second penalty to serve.
Albon is flying. He's nearly matching the leader's pace.
Yeah, he's really getting the most, especially on that hard tyre, which really is working well now. As everyone from Albon in 6th down, except for Colapinto, is on the hard compound tyre. Some are pitted, some haven't. Albon, Ocon, Stroll, and Hadjar and Gasly on the hard tyre have not pitted. Colapinto also hasn't pitted on the medium. And then Antonelli, Bortoleto, Behrman, Sainz, Tsunoda, Lawson, all on the hard tyre have pitted. And we've only got 20 laps to go. Haven't even been racing for an hour. This is normally the quickest race of the season. And thank God it's a quick race, because this has been an absolute terrible Grand Prix.
Yeah. Well, the McLarens are starting to pick up their pace now after 33 laps.
As Isaac Hadjar now pits.
Compose yourself, man. Come on.
As I don't understand why they're suddenly showing pace now, and I still don't understand why they're thinking about going onto the soft tyre when it's going to make absolutely no difference to their result. I don't get it. As Hadjar now 16th. It was
a little joke. They've been starting to gain a few tenths over the last few laps. Now Piastri's putting an absolute honker of a lap.
As all, Leclerc now pitting. He's not really made any inroads on the cars ahead of him in a massive way, as makes his stop onto the hard tyres. And he will actually come up behind Albon. And yeah, couple seconds or so in front of.
That was a serious lockup by Leclerc going into the pits, by the way.
And, well, to me, I don't understand why he was doing that, because, I mean, he's under no threat from anyone in this race. And
I think he probably just picked up where he'd put the flat spot on them earlier on in the race, right? It's probably what's just happened.
yeah. As Colapinto has got rid of his mediums, he's now at the back on the hard compound tyre. So everyone is on the hard tyre except for the front four who haven't pitted. And Leclerc rejoined 4.5 seconds clear of Russell. So Russell didn't really make any inroads into that fight I've missed a lap. Sorry about that. So I'll just skip over to lap 35 as we're looking at Russell about to pass Stroll. Leclerc saying, if we're not under threat, why did we stop now? Just to know. And yeah, we can discuss it later. Well, the simple answer is to get the stop done, because, I mean, they're under no threat from anyone behind and they're not fighting anyone ahead. So they may as well just do the pit stop and just go to the end, because from Ferrari's perspective, at least with Leclerc, it's just a case of getting to the end in fourth, which they're going to. With Lewis Hamilton, though, possibility of fifth, and here's a replay of that lockup with Leclerc, and yeah, a big double lockup. Might have been a late call there to come into the pits, who knows, but yeah. Ferrari just haven't had the pace today. That's simply why they are going to finish at best fourth and fifth, or fourth and sixth. Even if Leclerc had got pole, it would have mattered. They still probably would have ended up in fourth place. So, yeah. As George Russell is going to overtake Ocon now. And Russell up 2, as here he comes, up the inside, and yeah, 7th place. Alex Albon, meanwhile, yeah, the gap was 13 seconds between Albon and Hamilton. It's now 11.5, so Albon catching Hamilton, even though they're not fighting each other, as Leclerc does the fastest lap.
Yeah. Albon is faster than the leaders. Like, he's flying.
A shame that they were in such a low grid position, because if they started a bit higher up and went on this tyre, this could have made it a bit more interesting. But they just asked Lando again about soft tyre, and he said, yeah, to do something opposite to the car ahead, which I guess, but I don't think the soft tyre is going to do really anything. As Isaac Hadjar, actually, I need to update that Hadjar is onto the medium. Obviously, he started on the hard tyres, so obviously has to use 2 different types of compound in a dry race. And yeah, Max Verstappen Lando is catching. The gap's down to 5 seconds. It was 6.5, nearly 7 seconds, but still comfortable for Max.
You know, the race has gotten shit when Brundle's talking about how the park here lost all of the trees back in the storm here a couple of years back.
Verstappen being told to box first. That's surprising, as Sainz there all over the curb trying to get past Behrman. And yep, here comes Verstappen. What tyre will they go for? He's got 2 new sets of hard tyres, and yes, it is a set of hard tyres. So,
Yeah, Norris started to gain about 4/10 a lap on Verstappen.
So Max comes out in third place, about 3 seconds or so ahead of Lewis Hamilton. So we'll see what McLaren are going to do, whether they will decide to go a few laps longer, then go on the soft and just absolutely go for it. But I would be amazed if that strategy does work out for them. As Antonelli, we're looking at through the visor cam, he's behind Pierre Gasly, I think it is. And he's gaining. Will he send it up the inside? No, he's not close enough. The Alpine, though, thankfully for Antonelli, is the slowest in the or down the straights. Here at Monza, that's why they're the slowest team this weekend. So shouldn't take too long for him to pass the Alpine. But yeah, we've got 15 laps to go. By the way, if you're in the UK, that stupid emergency alert from the government's going to go off in 4 minutes, so brace yourself. I've left my phone outside of my room, thankfully, so you won't hear it. As Lewis Hamilton now pits, where will he come out in relation to Russell? Should be behind, but how many seconds behind will it be? As there, Russell goes through, and Hamilton will have a couple cars to overtake as Ocon and Stroll go through. So if he finishes out of Russell, fair play, because it's going to take a bit to be able to do that as Hamilton rejoins in 9th place. And now just needs to push as hard as possible for 15 laps. Antonelli sends it on Gasly, but Gasly does not give way as Leclerc does another fastest lap. But now Antonelli right in the slipstream. And he's going to have the inside line. And yeah, Antonelli will get this move done. And he's into the top 10. And once Ocon and Stroll have pit, then he'll go up to 8th. Alex Albon is going to rejoin, I think, around Bortoleto-Behrman area. So, as we're on now lap 40.
Jesus. Verstappen's just done a 21.4.
And yeah, he's only 17 seconds behind Norris. Obviously, Norris yet to pit. So if Norris was to pit now, he'd come out, 7 or 8 seconds behind. So Max keeps that pace up. Then having fresher, softer tyres at the end won't matter. As we're now looking at Bortoleto, who's right behind Gasly, and that is Behrman and Sainz racing hard over what could be a point in the end. As Sainz now right in the slipstream, right now around the outside. And Behrman keeps his car on the inside. That was inevitable. Behrman was not going to give way. And that is a collision. Thankfully, they're both going to get going again, but that looks so inevitable.
Yeah.
Sainz went for the outside. Behrman not going to give way, and he just went too deep. So that's that'll be a 5-second penalty for Oliver Behrman.
By the way, Piastri is absolutely flying at the moment.
Yeah, he's closed the gap quite a bit to Norris, 4.5 seconds. As Hamilton has passed Lance Stroll. And that is Bortoleto passing Gasly for 11th as Hadjar takes advantage of that Sainz-Behrman accident. So Hadjar up to 13th. There's a replay. Sainz went for the outside line. Clearly had the line and Behrman just collided into him. Only thing I will say with Behrman, I like him, but he's a bit too crashy for me. As Behrman saying that he turned into him, but I don't think Behrman fought that a little too hard. Sainz had the line. He should have let Sainz go, really. As Alex Albon finally makes his pit stop with nearly 10 laps to go. Let's see how quick he'll be as Max Verstappen does a 21.3. New fastest lap. And Hamilton up to 7th. Hamilton is 7 seconds behind Russell. So if he can catch at 7 or 8 tenths a lap, then he can get him. As Behrman, I think it's got damage. He's dropped back quite a bit. With Behrman, what have you thought of Behrman's debut season? Been a bit hit and miss at times for me, but what have you thought?
Yeah, the highs have been really high and the lows have been pretty low. It's been a bog standard rookie season, really. Just exactly what you expect from a rookie. I think quite clearly, though, Bortoleto has had the best season out of all the rookies.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, if he continues this form, you'd probably say yeah. It's between him and Hadjar for me.
You know what? Hadjar's been that good that you almost forget that he's even a rookie this season. Like, he has been just that good.
Very consistent for a rookie.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. It's clearly. I genuinely forgot Hadjar then when thinking about it. Hadjar is definitely our best rookie so far this season with Bortoleto behind him. Yeah. Deary me.
Bortoleto, though, is possibly going to get a couple points from today. And if he keeps this up, Bortoleto is going to get a decent finishing position in the championship for sure. He's quite far ahead in the head-to-head in qualifying between him and Hulkenberg. It's been a very impressive season from Bortoleto. Audi have got a very exciting driver on their hands. As Alex Albon is pitted, and now we will see what he can do. He's right behind Antonelli. Ocon and Stroll are yet to pit, so if he passes Antonelli, then he'll be in a net 7th place. That is a massive result for Williams after what happened yesterday in qualifying. And we're just seeing in the small little boxes. Piastri continuing to catch. It's another second from when I last said. It's now 3.5. He's applying the pressure. And clearly, McLaren are going to do what we thought they probably shouldn't do, which is go on to the soft tyre, because there's less than 10 laps to go now, and that's all you can do, really, at this point. As Albon, right behind Antonelli, up to the second chicane. Will he go for the move that Sainz did? And yes, he does. Brilliant. And Albon up to what will be a net 7th place. Albon, probably one of the drivers of the day. Maybe the driver of the day. We'll obviously do that vote at the end, or just after the end of the Grand Prix. But Albon past Antonelli. Ocon and Stroll clearly are just hoping for a safety car. or a virtual safety car in 7th and 8th place. As just a replay of that move.
I'm laughing because the whole timeline is just like I just shat my pants because of the alarm.
Yeah. I think, thankfully, I didn't hear it go off in the other room, so I think I managed to, thankfully, turn the alerts off. I wasn't sure if it would actually work doing that, but thankfully, because I was bracing myself for it. As here comes Oscar Piastri is the first to pit.
Lol. Norris suggested this, by the way. Norris just suggested that on the radio for the other car to box first.
Which is
I'm sorry, but
ridiculously stupid.
What?
Yeah. Well, Lando better hope he doesn't have a slow pit stop. It's 1.9 second stop for Piastri. Oh my, that might be the quickest of the season. That might be the quickest, one of the quickest ever pit stops.
It did 1.94 in Hungary.
We'll have to see.
Norris was told there would be no undercut, but I mean, as you said, if he has a slow pit stop, then oh boy.
Yeah, if it's 3.5 seconds save stop, that could put him just behind Piastri, because Piastri was only 3.2 behind. I don't. That makes no sense. Normally McLaren, and yeah, Norris told to box. Normally McLaren always pit the first car first. They've been doing that for 20 or 30 years. I don't know why they're doing this.
Apart from Hungary last year and today.
As Sainz and Behrman under investigation, and yeah, Behrman 10-second penalty. No surprise there. Here comes Lando Norris. Crucial that this pit stop goes well, and oh, it's delayed! The long delay, and he's lost 5.9 seconds. What an absolute disaster. Lap 47. And here comes Oscar Piastri. Oh my god. That is absolutely incredible.
I can't believe this. McLaren is so silly. Oh.
Any Lando fans who've complained about the treatment of the team towards Lando, they can absolutely be justified in that. I mean, yeah, the pit stop was bad, but why? And it was the left front. Just wouldn't go on properly. 4 seconds slower, that stop, than Piastri's. And he's now 1.9 behind Piastri. So he lost like 5-6 seconds in that whole... Yeah, that is...
There might be McLaren civil war if Piastri doesn't let him back through.
Well, if you're Piastri, why on earth would you let him back through?
Oh, I am not letting him back through, but gee whiz. That's... What are McLaren thinking? Oh.
No idea. That is Ferrari-esque type stuff that they've just done there. You thought, surely not, surely that Lando's stop will go fine and it'll all work out, but no, it was...
Saw it coming.
Tripped themselves up for absolutely no reason. I mean, still going to be the same amount of points for the team, but Piastri will be the man ahead of Norris as Piastri does the fastest lap, 1:21.2. Max Verstappen, by the way, is 18 seconds clear in the lead, so Verstappen is going to win the race. Max did the job. He pushed very hard once he pitted to make sure that McLaren couldn't come back at him. But yeah, that is one of the dumbest things I've seen in a...
And this is the thing. They were trying to cover off Leclerc, but if you want to cover off Leclerc, hit earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. Just. As, let's see. Well, we're not seeing whatever is being said on Piastri's radio, but if he's being told to let Norris through, if I'm Oscar Piastri, I'm not letting Lando through at all. Absolutely no chance. But no, he's going to. And he does. Well, Oscar is way too kind, because I would told McLaren to get fucked and I would have held second place.
Yeah, Piastri was very confused.
Well, yeah, way too kind there. If I'm Mark Webber after this race, I'll be saying to Piastri, don't ever do that again. Especially with 5-6 laps to go. Absolutely no reason to do that. And so
he could have probably could have let him through in a better place to keep him closer, to be honest.
yeah.
That's what I would have focused on.
And now they're telling Piastri that he's free to race Lando. But, it doesn't... Let me just update that Lando is back into second place. But if Lando stays ahead, which it looks like he will, because he's nearly a second clear Piastri, Lando will close the gap by 3 points, and the gap will be 31 points going into Baku. Max Verstappen will actually cut the gap down to under 100 points to Piastri. I think it'll be 95 points or something. Max, obviously, too far behind, but he has had, since the summer break, some very good results. And this, even though he's not going to win the championship this year, which he'll be disappointed with, this will be a win he'll enjoy quite a bit. As Lance Stroll has finally pitted, so has Gasly. So Albon is up to 8th. Lance Stroll, we'll see where he filters out. Stroll's going to end up in, I think, 14th place. Verstappen, I think, is actually lapping at the same pace, if not quicker than the McLarens on the hard tyre. Max being told about what happened with the McLarens, and he said, ha, just because he had a slow stop. And, yeah.
Yeah, Max did say that in the expression, which you can imagine. He was quite like, they really did that because he had a slow pit stop.
That is some, what do you call it? Efron gets a medal type attitudes right there from McLaren. But that's what they've done. It won't make a difference, I don't think, to the championship, and the Piastri still 31 points clear if Norris and Piastri finish the way they do. But yeah, as Pierre Gasly came out 17th. Lance Stroll obviously had an awful pit stop because he is now last. He was ahead of Gasly. He's now behind him. As Ocon is going to... it's now lap 52, penultimate lap. Ocon presumably is going to pit at the last possible opportunity. He has to serve a 5-second penalty as well, so Ocon. And sadly, Haas will not score points, even though it looks like possible, like it was maybe possible, but no points for Haas. What that will mean, though, is Albon will finish in 7th, Antonelli 8th, Bortoletto ninth, and Isaac Hadjar might just finish in 10th here. Remember, Hadjar started from the pit lane. Can he hang on for what would be an incredible drive? Not just from the pit lane, but remember, Racing Bulls were only 16th in qualifying, so it's not like they were really quick, but had to start from the pit lane. He's got Carlos Sainz, though, right behind him, so it's going to be close. This will be a magnificent point, though, for Hadjar. If he does get that point, he'll go ahead of Hulkenberg in the championship up to 9th. As Ocon drops all the way down to 15th. As we are now on the final lap. Max Verstappen doing a new fastest lap. A quick word, Nib, on our race winner, Max Verstappen. Once again proving he is just the best. What a dominant drive.
And he just got his fastest lap. Yeah, I mean, vintage Verstappen performance today. Great pole, and just obviously a little bit of shenanigans at turn 1, but it did not matter. Red Bull just quite clearly quicker today, and a dominant display by Verstappen. And the new engine that they put in the back of the Red Bull certainly working very, very well. And of course, those new little performance upgrades. Let's see if this can continue on for Red Bull in the upcoming races.
Indeed, as Max Verstappen is just coming up, I think, the Parabolica. Now through the Parabolica. For his 3rd win at Monza in the last 4 years, Max Verstappen wins the Italian Grand Prix of Monza, and he thoroughly deserves it. He has absolutely thrashed the rest of the field. Lando Norris will finish in 2nd place and take 3 points from his championship rival Piastri. Piastri, though, will still be 31 points clear in the championship. Leclerc, 4th, disappointing race for Ferrari. They just didn't have the pace. Russell, 5th. Lewis Hamilton, 6th. Alexander Albon, 7th. What a result from 14th on the grid. Antonelli, 8th. Bortoletto, 9th. And Isaac Hadjar, I think, will just hang on for a point from the pit lane. What a drive from the rookie of the year so far. Sainz will then finish just behind in 11th. With Behrman in 12th, and then Tsunoda 13th, Lawson 14th. As Bortoletto has jumped Antonelli. And actually, Bortoletto has finished in 8th place. What a result for Bortoletto, 8th in the Italian Grand Prix. And then, yes, Tsunoda 13th, Lawson 14th, then Ocon, Gasly, Colapinto, and Stroll rounding out the rest of the field. And your only retirements, Alonso and Hulkenberg. But yeah, it wasn't a great race, but that was a tremendous display from Verstappen of why he is the best in Formula One. And as Nib said, if these little upgrades they've got coming, if they can work, we know if Max has the car, then he absolutely can go out there and win races. So, we'll see. Yeah, Antonelli was given a time penalty on the last lap. 5-second time penalty for driving erratically. And that's why Bortoletto finishes 8th. So, a late penalty there. But, yeah. Let me just quickly put there over, because obviously the race is over. Driver of the day. There are a couple contenders, but for me, it has to be Max Verstappen. Who would you go for, Nib?
Yeah, gotta be Verstappen, and then Hadjar,
Yeah.
Albon.
Yeah, probably those are probably the 3 main contenders. So, I'll just set up this poll quick. So, yeah, Max Verstappen, Alexander Albon, Isaac Hadjar, and I'll put Bortoletto in there as well. Bortoletto, what a weekend. 7th in qualifying, Well, no, 8th in qualifying and 8th in the race. That is top job. And Sauber are only, I think, 7 points now off 6th in the championship. So, good result there. But let us know, guys, who is your driver of the day for this Italian Grand Prix? But yeah, sadly, wasn't as great as I was hoping it was going to be. The first 5 laps was insane. I was thinking, if this continues on like this is going to be one of the best races in years. But it sadly did not continue. I think the reason it was like that in the first, 5 laps, it was people just trying to get back into their position than they should be. Obviously, Piastri was way quicker than Leclerc. Max was way quicker than Lando. So that's mainly what it was about. And then once Max got into the lead and Oscar got into third, it all settled down. But yeah, those first few laps were incredible while they lasted. And yeah, Verstappen's first win in 3.5 months. Brilliant, brilliant win. And that is Max's 3rd win of the Formula One season. As there's a disappointed Leclerc getting out of his car. Didn't do anything wrong today, really. The car just was not anywhere near quick enough. That will be a bit alarming for Ferrari, being that far off the pace in that race, because lately, race pace-wise, they've tended to be, most of the time, pretty good. But that was, they were really far off the pace. And in the end, I think Leclerc was about 25 seconds, around 25 seconds off the race winner. And yeah, Lewis Hamilton looking disappointed as well. Hamilton did the best he could, I think, given where he started. But yeah, 4th and 6th, very disappointing for the Scuderia. But now, that is the European season done. The next Grand Prix is Baku in 2 weeks' time. And then another 2 weeks after that is Singapore. And then another 2 weeks after that, we head to North America for the final 6 races of the season. But championship-wise, Nib, not really much different from where we were before the race started. But how are you feeling championship-wise now going into Baku, where McLaren should be obviously very quick there?
Yeah, nothing's changed really. Only 3 points lost in the lead, and absolutely A-OK with 3 points being lost in the championship.
Yeah, Baku, we know, can be a race where crazy things can happen, and maybe that'll affect the championship. But if it's just a normal weekend, which we have had before at Baku, McLaren are going to be pretty strong. The only scenario I can see where McLaren are under threat from anyone else is if Leclerc is on another one of his mental Baku weekends where he's, incredibly quick. I think he will be very quick in Baku, but whether the car will be there with him is another story. But yeah, McLaren, you wouldn't be surprised if they were the quickest team pretty much from now or from the next race until the end of the season. So that might be today the last time we see a team other than McLaren winning a Grand Prix. Because McLaren, before today, had, I think, 5 consecutive 1-2 finishes. So, been very dominant as of late, McLaren. Well, no, they didn't have a 1-2 in Holland, but before that, they had 4 1-2s in a row. Would have had, obviously, a 1-2 at Zandvoort. Let me just read a couple comments before we head off. Thank you to G Walker. Thank you to all of you, by the way, for coming along for this stream. Good to see so many of you here. Let me see if I can find some good comments. Say regards says Verstappen is more than an all-timer. Craig Brudnell, this is a comment that will spark debate, and I think you'll like. Norris wouldn't have made it out of Q2 without Piastri's help, and now he has to hand it to him again. Fuck McLaren. That Q2 situation was, I mean, at the time, we didn't really know it too much, but Lando did get a bit fortunate with that, because in Q2, he was really poor. And as Craig said, Piastri gave him the toe when he really didn't need to. But again, Piastri, he's kinder than I would be in that situation. And if Lando had got knocked out in Q2, Lando probably would have finished... Well, he wouldn't have finished on the podium, I don't think, but obviously would have benefited Piastri quite a bit. But that will, I'm sure, spark debate. Piastri letting Lando back through. Yanni says they're treating Oscar like he comes from a penal colony. Not cool. Yeah, I can't see any others at the minute. I mean, quick word. In looking back, do you think he should have... Do you think that'll benefit him in any way, him being that kind? Or do you think he should have just kept ahead and dealt with whatever tension within the team later?
I don't know if he's thought about this in the car at the time, but I think he doesn't need to burn bridges when he's got that lead in the championship.
Yeah.
If it's closer, do it. Burn the bridges, but not when he's got a comfortable lead.
That's one thing we have heard with McLaren. I think that was part of the whole Hungary thing last year. In terms of what McLaren were telling Lando is, you'll need Oscar, or, it's not worth, as you say, burning the bridges. So we'll see if, maybe a situation crops up like this again where it's maybe a bit closer in the championship. Maybe Piastri will act differently. But I personally don't think that is going to play a role, because I think as long as the rest of the races this season are normal races, I think Piastri will still get the job done. Today, Piastri really lost the chance to fight Lando after the start, being behind Leclerc. He lost too much time and hurt his tyres. So after that, it was just very difficult, really, to have a proper fight. But Baku, of course, Piastri won brilliantly there last year. So we'll see if Piastri can get 2 wins in a row around the streets of Baku. Nib, thank you very much for joining us for what was a disappointing race here at Monza in the end, but still, cheers for joining me and helping out, and we'll see you again, hopefully, for Baku in 2 weeks.
Yep, well, it's an hour earlier, so even better for me. So you'll definitely be seeing me in 2 weeks, and thanks for your usual and continued support from everyone in the chat. Hope you have a good couple of weeks, and yeah, we'll see you then.
Yeah, cheers for today. And as I said before, guys, thanks for coming along to not just this stream, but the streams this weekend. We had good numbers today and yesterday, so a good amount of you coming along, watching, interacting, and all. Before I go, as usual, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to smash the like button. We're nearly on 100 likes, so if you haven't hit the like button yet, make sure to do so. I'll quickly finish up with the poll in the chat. We've had about 100 votes. Yeah, 100 votes exactly. And there's a clear winner for driver of the day. Max Verstappen, 88% of the vote. And then Albon second on 8%. And then Hadjar and Bortoletto. Yeah, Max, just incredible this weekend. And we'll see whether he gets another win this season or whether upgrades can maybe get him back in the fight properly, which is more so what we need for entertainment purposes, I would say. But brilliant drive from Verstappen today, and we'll see what happens going forward. As I said earlier, I will, remember, be uploading a podcast tomorrow reviewing the Italian Grand Prix. And then because we've got a 2-week break now until the next Grand Prix in Baku, I will be uploading at least one recorded video in this 2-week break. Hopefully 2 recorded videos, but at least one I think will be coming out probably on Friday. And then if I do manage to upload the second one, it'll probably be on the Monday or the Tuesday of the week after. And then for Baku, I will be doing both a qualifying and race watch along, and of course a podcast the day after reviewing the race. Qualifying watch along, I'll be live at 11:30 a.m. UK time, hour and a half before qualifying as usual. And then for the race, live 2 hours before the race at 10 a.m. UK time for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix race watch along. So make sure to join us for that in 2 weeks' time. Plenty of content coming your way in the next couple weeks. But guys, that has been it from us for this Italian Grand Prix weekend at Monza. The European season is done. We've only got 8 races to go now, and we'll see what happens next up in Baku. But until next time, guys, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.